Okay, I have 7:00 p.m. and it's Thursday, September 8th, 2022. This is the Albany Parks, Recreation, and Open Spaces Commission. Can we have a roll call?
Sure. Commissioner Abbott?
I am here.
Commissioner Armendariz is excused. Commissioner Chang Frank is going to be a little bit late. Commissioner Kent?
Here.
Commissioner Martin?
Here.
Commissioner Price?
Here.
And Chair Beal.
I am also here. Okay, and now for the rest of item 1, we'll do the land acknowledgement statement, which shall be read at the beginning of each city council meeting and advisory meeting for Albany City Council Minute Action, November 15, 2021. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Legends. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that make this their home. Okay, and then on to the next item, approval of minutes, July 14, 2022. Does anyone have a motion to approve or discuss minutes?
As is becoming tradition, I will move that we approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Kent?
Yes.
Commissioner Martin?
You're on mute, Commissioner Martin.
I had to find my unmute button, and yes.
Commissioner Martin. Commissioner Price?
Yes.
And Chair Beal.
Yes. I've also had that trying to find the mute button experience as well. I'm here doing multiple monitors, so the minutes are approved. Now for our favorite time of the program, public comment for persons desiring to address the advisory body on an item that is not on the agenda. Please note that each speaker is limited to up to 3 minutes. Sometimes we'll shorten that if there's too many people. The Brown Act limits the Commission's ability to take in or discuss items that are not on the agenda. Therefore, such items are normally referred to for staff for a future agenda. Seeing, do we, I'm not sure if I have the ability even to see, do we have anyone from the public tonight?
Not yet. I do, yes.
They're here, but is anyone raising their hand?
Yes, we have 2 so far.
Okay, well, why don't you guys let them know? I see them now. Yeah.
Hi, we have a comment about the trees on Washington.
I'm sorry, that item is on the agenda. You'll need to wait until then.
Oh,
Do you
got
want
it.
to talk about something not on the agenda?
Nope,
Okay, thank you.
thanks.
Next speaker.
Sorry, having a little bit of difficulties.
Ingrid. You're still, okay. Hi, Ingrid.
Hi, I would like to speak on the Washington Avenue tree
Ingrid,
removal
that
as
item
well.
is on the agenda. I'm sorry, you'll have to wait till.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the, this is the public comment for items not, is there any members of the public that want to talk about something else that we didn't think to talk about? Okay, I guess if there's no one else, then we'll move on to the actual, it sort of would be silly if that were the next thing on the agenda, but it's not. So I guess I'm not seeing any hands. So we'll go on to announcements. So are there any staff, I guess usually we start with the staff. So are there any staff announcements?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Beal, and hello, commissioners again. I do have a few announcements. The fall activity guide was recently posted online and delivered to all of the Albany addresses. This is an all-inclusive publication that not only displays all of our programs, events, and classes, but also has an overview of all of the city services. Hard copies are available at the Community Center, Senior Center, as well as City Hall, and it is still online. Last month, we hosted our second concert in the park. The band called the Cheese Balls brought their energetic sounds to Memorial Park. There were hundreds of community members, including many families, enjoying the park, music, and local food vendors. A great time seemed to be had by all. The final concert in the park is coming up on Saturday, September the 24th. Food vendors will open for business from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And the band, Rooster Rock and Roll, will take the stage and play their Americana-style rock and roll from 12 to 2. We hope that you will be able to join us for this sure-to-be great Saturday afternoon. And thank you very much. That's my announcement.
Okay, anyone else want to join the party? Rose Commissioner Abbott.
Just want to quickly mention that this weekend is the Solano Stroll. The 46th Solano Stroll is coming back this Sunday. Solano Avenue will be closed, so be prepared for disruption if that's a concern. But we're expecting a whole lot of people. It should be a good day. We're glad that the heat is breaking. We're very, very glad that the heat is breaking, and no chance of rain. So we're looking good about that. And then Saturday is our third quarterly Strollish event, which is basically what merchants and residents have been asking for probably about 10 years, which is a smaller sidewalk event without outside vendors. So we're looking for that event on Saturday. So each event is 10 to 5, Saturday and Sunday. Hope to see you there.
Okay, that sounds great. Any more? Any other commissioner or staff announcements? Okay, well then it's time to move on. Can we have the Public Works presentation, item number 5, on update on the operation and maintenance of city parks? Take it away.
All right, good evening. I have a little presentation here. I'm going to share my screen. So hopefully this works out. Can you all see that?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay. Okay. Welcome. This is our semi-annual Public Works update. We do this about twice a year. Haven't been successful in having it be quite as regular as we'd like it to, but here we are again. And just to kind of give an overview of what we're covering, there's gonna talk a little bit about the park maintenance cycle, there's some non-cyclical refresh tasks that we've completed recently, some staffing changes that we're really excited to present to you guys, some challenges. As always, there's challenges. And some upcoming projects, as well as a presentation on the budget. So quick reminder, Public Works, we cover quite a bit of different areas, ranging from the capital improvement plan to right-of-way, building and facilities management, parks and playfields, open space and urban forestry, and kind of interfacing with other departments and so on. For parks maintenance, kind of a little bit more in depth there. The basic areas in parks maintenance are parks operations and maintenance, park trees maintenance, which, as you know, John takes care of the trees He won't be speaking to that tonight, but maybe he could be convinced to go into a little more depth in the future on the tree health audit, the audits that he does, tree replacement plan for the parks, and so on. We also take care of the playfields, the courts and structures, and as well as trash management. Trash management is a very big part of what we do maintenance-wise. Hold on a sec. Trying to get. So kind of here's a basic part of we call it our weekly maintenance. We call it a trash run, but it does involve quite a bit more than that. As you can see, here's a little matrix here with all the different parks. The letters A, B, and C there are just different assignment areas. So basically there'll be one person that does all of the trash run tasks for area A, someone else will be assigned for area B, someone else for area C. And then on long weekends, we have, this is something we started, a couple of years ago. I think when COVID hit, we started to see a lot of additional use of our parks, especially on long weekends. And it was really impacting our ability to get anything else done during the week when we came back from a long weekend and found that the parks were kind of a little bit of a mess. So to take care of that, we have crew come in on overtime on long weekends to do this trash run and keep us on schedule, essentially. We call it a trash run, but it involves more than the garbage collection. Garbage collection is a big part of that, but also looking for illegal dumping in the parks, and then especially up on the hill, as well as in the bulb, picking up litter. We blow off any of the walkways and tennis courts. That's not just for things to look nice and people to be able to play tennis well, but also to keep those parks accessible. Especially if you think about the pathway up on Albany Hill that was built as an accessible pathway. And you can imagine if it doesn't get blown off pretty regularly, someone with mobility issues might not be able to make it to enjoy that open space. We also check on the bathrooms for cleanliness and supplies, restock items such as dog bags, look at the toys at the tot lot, maybe cull those out if needed, and also check on the drainage ditch at Terrace Park. That's more often for like the winter time, but even during the summertime, that can get pretty clogged up with debris and balls. And then one thing I wanted to note, part of our trash run B is we go to the dog park, section B at Memorial. And that was mostly because if it doesn't get serviced regularly, that trash can get pretty nasty pretty quick. And something we've added pretty recently, as well as you can see here, is another another pass at Memorial Park midweek. And that was added because of the additional impact on the park from Albany High School eating their lunches out there. We've seen quite a bit of additional trash, and it's impacted, I think, as I mentioned before, our use of the bathroom. It gets pretty well used. So we have this additional trash run at Memorial Park that we're putting in as a temporary thing for now. Here's our janitorial schedule. This basically Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the bathrooms, the exterior restrooms at the parks get cleaned. There's an additional cleaning on Saturdays during basically the warmer months when Memorial Park and Ocean View Park are more heavily used for picnics and barbecues. In addition to, this is what's done by our janitorial contractor, but in addition, restrooms are regularly checked, not just by our public works staff, but the rec staff frequently goes by there, and both public works and rec staff can restock things if needed and report any major issues that we need to address right away. Mowing schedule. Mowing happens at our parks. We have kind of a mix, as I might have mentioned in the past, between what's mowed by contractors and what's mowed by city staff. Contractors on a pretty regular weekly schedule. I should mention that does change in the wintertime when grass is not growing quite as often. So they dial back the regular mowing. But contractor weekly mows on the greenway, usually on Wednesdays, and that's combined with their regular kind of other tidying up that they do on the greenway. Ocean View Ball Field and Memorial Ball Field get mowed on Thursday mornings, usually around 8 o'clock at Ocean View, and then they move over to Memorial. Takes about an hour and a half to do Ocean View, so they'll be at Memorial by 9:30. And then city staff takes care of Jules Terrace and the Memorial Park lawns, as well as Key Route. One thing I want you to note here is, if you take a look, the Albany Greenway and Key Route are very similar in terms of the kind of mowing that you would need. But just historically, that's been split up between contractor and city staff. That's something that we're looking to take a better, kind of make a little bit more sense. Where we can deploy the contractor to get the best value, and where we can get city staff to take care of things, where city staff has a little bit more attention to detail and can really make things present the way that we want them to. The mowing at the ball fields is a little bit of a recent change. I think they used to do it a little bit earlier in the week. They changed it because they needed to, but it turned out to be a good change for us as well, because it gets the ball fields ready for the weekend. That way, folks that play ball on the weekends have a freshly mown lawn to work with. Some non-cyclical refresh tasks that we've completed recently include replacing or repairs to the rubber surfaces at the parks. You can see here, this is at Memorial Park. They're laying down some new rubber surfacing. And then here at the Tot Lot, they've done some repairs. We've also worked at the tennis courts, replacing nets, replacing the windscreens at Memorial Park, and surface wash to the terrace and Memorial Park tennis courts. We didn't do a surface wash at Ocean View. It looked pretty good, but also that is scheduled for a bigger project coming up soon to convert that to the pickleball courts. Some more tasks here. Grill maintenance. You see here, there's a kind of take a look at what things look like before we get a chance to refresh them, and afterwards, taking off the rust, putting a new coat of paint on. This is something that we hadn't been able to do in a good while. We hadn't been at full staff. And now that we have a full staff worth of maintenance workers, we're able to get to these kind of cyclical or off-cycle maintenance tasks a little better. We also installed new grills at Ocean View. And then these picnic tables we've been rebuilding kind of bit by bit as they fail. These ones here were done by one of our maintenance workers, Peter, who does a pretty good job with carpentry, and we're really happy with how those turned out. And then another non-cyclic maintenance task we did was replenishing the sand at the playgrounds. Finally, the last kind of other non-cyclic items were irrigation improvements at the ball fields. With the kind of ongoing drought in California, we've been trying to do a little bit better about keeping those in good shape. It's a lot easier to maintain a ball field at kind of a steady, nice green than to try to let it die back, and then you have to replace the whole sod. We're also going to be tuning in the irrigation at other locations like the Greenway and key route, where maybe that's not it's not as critical to keep it quite as green. So we can save a little bit of water there without it necessarily impacting the quality of people's enjoyment of those areas. And then finally, one thing that we're really happy about was these new big belly trash receptacles. They've been installed. We repurposed a couple for out at the bulb, but we were able to put 4 new systems in at the Albany Hill and the waterfront. These have already been getting serviced by Waste Management, which is really great. And we're hoping to see that this has a good impact on the amount of litter that we see, particularly on Albany Hill. I kind of alluded to a little bit some staff changes. So we did a little bit of a new staff structure, which actually was implemented just starting this week. We used to have a single lead maintenance worker, and what we've been able to do is reclass some of our more senior maintenance worker positions to have now 4 lead workers with a focused area of responsibility, dealing with parks, public right-of-way, buildings, and sewer. The maintenance workers will still all be working in all these different areas, but there'll be one point person who is responsible for that area, and we'll be able to do a survey of the parks once a week and catch some of these issues before they become critical and better manage the performance of our contractors. And we're also going to have a small projects manager that we'll be hiring that will help with executing these smaller capital projects, which unfortunately often fall into the parks and buildings areas where we have a smaller project that's maybe a little bit bigger than what we can do with maintenance staff, but not quite as big as something where we would have a capital projects manager involved with that. So that'll be helpful for us to execute on some of those smaller projects. And finally, just mentioning that we do coordinate with recreation quite a bit. Our new lead worker for parks will be part of that coordination. I would say from the maintenance side, the city department we interface with the most, and that we meet with the most and have kind of the most interactions with is going to be recreation, just because of the sheer size of that department in terms of not just staff, but also the areas of that they focus. Some challenges and opportunities. You guys have heard me talk about the SB 1383. That's a new organics procurement requirement. It's a state law that requires us to purchase 1,364 tons of organic waste every year. So that's repurposed organic waste that is then recycled into compost and mulch. Compost and mulch are wonderful things for our planted areas. It's not something that we've done a good job in the past of taking advantage of. And this new state requirement is going to really kind of push us to do a lot more there. One of the ways that we're looking to address that is through this GIS tool. It's a graphical database tool that we're working with PlaceWorks to develop, and that'll help us to know where we can apply compost, where we can apply mulch, how much we can apply, and to be able to get the best results for those planted areas. Another ongoing challenge has been restroom vandalism, particularly at Memorial Park, but we've seen that as well at Terrace Park. Lots of graffiti and lots of little fires and other kinds of vandalism like that, which has been pretty rough in terms of our ability to maintain those spaces and have them be usable for the public, and also quite costly as well. And then graffiti, just in general, you can see there on the BART columns. That's a regular spot that we have to check pretty regularly. Additional challenges are trash management, particularly with the new state requirements. We're having to do a lot more sorting of trash, and can get into some trouble if things aren't handled well that way. And then I've also mentioned in the past ongoing issues with the exercise equipment at the Albany. That was a relatively new area. We've seen the kind of fixed equipment that doesn't have a whole lot of moving parts. Those have performed very well and gotten a decent amount of use. The ones that have moving parts that are more with the pistons and the rotating things have not held up the way that we had hoped. And so that's going to be an area where I think in the future we're looking, coming back to the commission for some advice on how best to manage that, whether we decide to take them out and replace them with something else, or just kind of do a better job of keeping them up once they're in. I'm not certain what the right answer is right now, but that's something we'll look to be improving. Some upcoming items, the work order system, you've heard me talk about that. That's still in the pipeline. We're still working on being able to have staff capacity to implement that. Some future non-cyclical items that we want to get to. We've heard quite a bit about issues with the tennis courts. So we're looking at implementing some crack sealing on the tennis courts to get a better playable surface, and also doing a better job about stocking and providing tennis supplies such as broom and squeegee, so that the players can do their little bit of maintenance before they play. We'll still be doing the blowing off the tennis courts as part of our trash run, but this gives the opportunity for somebody to just kind of do a little bit of tidying up before they play and have the best surface possible. And then finally, also the play equipment. The playgrounds need kind of constant attention, so that's another thing that we'll be looking at. We've done a few repairs over the past year, but that's something that we constantly go back to and look at again. Some other upcoming things, the park master plan. We heard loud and clear that maintenance at the parks is a concern from the master plan, as well as feedback from the public. And then the turf evaluation. We think that the GIS database that we're working with Placeworks to put together, not quite ready for presentation here yet, but that's something that we'll bring to the commission once we get that rolled out. And the turf evaluation, we want to understand and more efficiently utilize the ball fields and improve the maintenance there. And that's something that we're looking to get some outside expertise to help us with that. Some other upcoming projects, the Prop 68 projects. Phase 1 will be tackling the Memorial Park lighting, the dog park improvements, and pickleball courts that I mentioned. Those are all listed as phase 1. We packaged them together, and we'll likely have a contractor that'll manage the implementation of those and come back to the commission by the end of the calendar year to get that kicked off. Phase 2, we have a couple other projects, the Tot Lot Terrace Park and Peggy Thompson improvements. Those ones still need a little bit more conceptual work and design work before we can start implementing, but that should be coming on not too long. And that'll, by the time we have those ready to go, we're hoping to have our small projects manager within the department to be able to handle implementation there. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about the budget. So I'm going to mute myself and turn things over to.
Hi, commissioners. I'm Devorah Zotter. We met last time that we presented our parks maintenance program. Not much has changed about the budget for our parks maintenance. You'll see this image, which may look familiar from last time, just to illustrate that our parks maintenance is approximately 12% of the Public Works operating budget. And for fiscal year 23, that budget is $710,000 approximately. We didn't make any changes yet, and any changes that are made in the future to accommodate increases to services will be brought as part of any larger city budget updates by the finance director to the city council. We won't go over it now, but I did link here the section of the biennial operating budget. Sorry, I did note the section and link to the website that hosts the biennial operating budget and any reports that the finance director makes quarterly. Next slide, please. I also wanted to just boost back up in your minds that we do keep a web page on Measure M tax funds. This is also known as the Parks and Open Space Parcel Tax, which was passed in 2018. We update it annually after the audit is finalized, so usually late in the calendar year. So I should be updating this in the next few months as the audit is completed. And this page lives under the Finance and Administrative Services Department section of our website. You see it's under Parks and Open Space Parcel Tax. That is all I have to say about this one. And then the last thing I'll share with you is that we're really proud of the updates we've made to how we inform the community about construction and projects that are happening through Public Works. This is through our construction alerts page. This includes active, upcoming, and past projects. And it's updated at least once a month whenever we get new information or projects are scheduled to go into construction. So you can see that it has 3 sections. We have a top section for current projects and alerts. It'll also note when the last time that page was updated. We have upcoming projects. Yes, and Rezu is demonstrating the ease of access to the information here. If you're not interested in something, just minimize it. And then we also have upcoming projects that are scheduled to go into construction or are in the process of like in pre-construction mode. And then in the last we have the last couple of years of archived projects, sometimes including photos. For example, you can see our sidewalk program. We just completed phase 5, and our sidewalk engineer, James, has put together a very nice set of images to show before and afters of some of the locations in that phase. So we're encouraging people to share this website with residents if they have questions about current projects. It can be found at www.albanyca.org/construction-alerts. And yes, please use that. Let us know if you have any questions or feedback. We really want to try to centralize information to make it accessible to the public and consistent across all of our conversations. That's all from me. Happy to answer questions.
Is that all from staff, or
we're not quite done?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Questions from the staff.
Okay. Sorry about that. I also realized when Devorah was talking that I never introduced myself. My name is Razu Engen, and I'm the Public Works Manager here. And I manage not just the maintenance crew, but also a number of our maintenance contracts that deal with parks and as well as other parts of the city. We are almost done. Just I wanted to highlight another section of our website, which is our service requests page, which you can find pretty easily on the main website. There's a little box down here, service requests. It's also in the drop-down menu under Public Works, but this might be a quicker and easier way to find it. So having said that, I will now open it up for questions.
Okay, questions from Commissioner? Pros Commissioner Kennett?
Hi. Couple questions on Memorial Park. You mentioned the turf rehabilitation. Was that just for the sports field, or was it also for the kind of non-programmed open space lawn that everybody uses for volleyball and soccer and for picnicking on, which seems in very rough shape?
Yes, I agree. It does seem in very rough shape. That area has not been closed off and aerated and overseeded in quite some time. It's taken quite a beating from the additional usage that we've seen lately. The turf audit is meant to take care of all the areas where we have turf, which would include those lawn spaces at the parks, the ball fields, as well as any other kind of planted areas where you might have something that would be considered lawn, say around the Albany Loop sculpture on the Greenway, for instance, and coming up with a plan to better manage those areas so that we know here's the appropriate maintenance cycle for a ball field versus here's the appropriate maintenance cycle for a lawn area. If we even want to continue to have lawn areas in those areas, that might be something that the turf audit develops.
Okay, one more follow-up question. First of all, I just want to say it gets tremendous use, so I'm not blaming you guys for not maintaining it. It's so well used. It's a wonder it stands up any lawn at all on it. But the other one, I can't find the status of the lighting. Now we're moving into fall. Wasn't there supposed to be some lighting improvements in Memorial Park, or were those done?
No, those weren't done. That's going to be part of the Prop 68 project. And that one's, we do have completed plans on that. We'll probably need to take another quick look at those plans, make sure nothing needs to be updated, but that can be implemented fairly soon. We just need to make some space in our capacity here.
Thank you.
Pros Commissioner Martin.
Thank you. I had a few questions. One was, you mentioned some number of tons of mulch, this state law we've been hearing about that requires cities to accept a whole bunch of that kind of stuff and use it. Have you done a back of the envelope calculation or is there a standard way to convert that from like tons to cubic yards or something? And then if you spread it this many inches thick, it'll, I mean, if you did a back of the envelope calculation, do we have enough open space, or how many feet deep would it go, or inches, or do you have a sense of that?
Yes. So there's a different conversion for compost versus mulch. Mulch is about 1-to-1. Compost is a little bit different. And that's based on guidance from CalRecycle, I believe. And as far as like how much, it is more than we've ever spread, I would say. And we have to buy that year over year. It is quite a large volume. I think that with some effort and especially with some outside guidance, we could get close to that. I'm not sure that total number is a realistic number. Looks like Mark wants to weigh in here on this.
Yeah, let me jump in here. One of the things I think I did a back of the envelope on this at one point, and it was for a visual football field, 3-4 feet deep type amount. So it's a lot. this is why we engaged PlaceWorks. PlaceWorks was working for, I believe it was Stop Waste. And they built a tool to help cities figure out this. And it was a very high level tool. We've engaged them to drill it down a little bit more. So we know the areas that can accept organics and what type of organics and what's the cycle. And we're actually trying to put a cost component on it so we can manage it over time. So we can figure out how much can we use on city-owned property. And then there's a potential of engaging, well, gosh, do we engage UC Village or other places that have green space that can accept it. So we're still trying to get our arms as well as many other cities are trying to get their arms around this issue. And that's where this tool is helping us.
If I can just add, both Mark and Rezu referenced the cost of this. It's considered to be in the state, it's considered to be SB 1383 is considered to be an unfunded mandate. So as this tool will help us, and we are analyzing costs as we get a better picture of what this practice will look like. We have to purchase this every year. And so figuring that out is part of our task. Yeah. But it'll certainly be reported on as we go through this process.
Does that satisfy your question, Brian? Or
that answers that one. Yeah, thanks. And then the next one was a couple more. Will the Prop 68 projects show up on the construction alerts page?
Absolutely.
And is it possible that they would show up before they would come before the commission, or they would always come before us? I mean, we already approved them and the city council approved them a while ago. Like, would they just appear on their own, or would they come before us first?
There's probably multiple answers to that. The one answer is, depending on the project. For the lighting project that the plans are basically done, we've approved the plans. Once we get a project manager on board, a contract project manager on board, we'd like to go out for that. And then that would, once we have a schedule, we would post that schedule on the construction alerts. For the pickleball, as well as the dog park improvements, I think we need one more round of sort of design refinement with the commission, and we're hoping to do that at the end of the year, and then move into construction of those fairly quickly. You know, again, we want to try to do these as close together as possible because we don't have huge budgets. So if we're going to hire a project manager, we want to start them, get them going through completion of all phases. So.
Okay, thanks.
Just to comment on, go ahead, Mark.
Oh, but then the second phase of the projects, we likely will have at least one, maybe even two check-ins with the commission as the scope of those gets further developed. And my hope is that would be our employee small project manager, not a contractor.
And at more of the, just to tell you what goes on that page, the idea is to be a source of information for what's upcoming in general, and then oftentimes specific actions like commission presentations or council actions are then linked under those projects. So the information there won't be ahead of you in that way.
So it won't be breaking news or something?
No.
Okay.
I hope not.
Okay, a couple of quick ones. One is on the Measure M website, it says, well, a couple of things. One is, I think it would be good for this agenda item. My understanding is that Public Works submits the language to go on the parks to our commission's agenda. And I think it would be helpful to include something about Measure M in that.
I just want to interrupt here. This part's for questions, not a lot of comments. So that we're going to go to public comment and then have another discussion. So I'm just noticing we're going a long time. So
thank you for that. Thank you for that. I forgot. The next question is Prop 68 Project Suite. I'm looking at the Measure M website. So why is Prop 68 Project Suite under that? Isn't it have its own funding, or was that to do the design or something?
So that's a great question. So the Prop 68 grants come from two funding sources, or two programs within that. And one of the programs required matching funds. We had to provide a local match of, I believe, 20%. So, yeah.
Okay, and then my last question for now is on the same website for Measure M, it says capital improvements and maintenance reserve, and it has some dollar figure for each year, and then a total of 710,000 roughly. Is that money that this commission basically has to think about for park improvements potentially?
So how about I start this, and if I miss anything, Mark, you can chime in. I think we talked about this a little bit last time, but part of our strategy, because as you've heard with the presentation, we have many places in our programs where we are looking to increase service. We have many projects that require funding that are coming out of the Parks Master Plan. The idea is that some of Measure M is held in reserve for staff, for Public Works and Finance to work together to fund the priorities that Council and Commission indicate are highest. So it's not necessarily, I wouldn't think of it necessarily as like a bucket that needs to be spent. Rather, it's a reserve that can be strategically allocated after priorities are set at the Council and Commission levels. And Finance and Public Works work to do that together.
And one quick follow-up on that, that $710,000, is that just all the money that's gone in, or is that how much is in the bank right now in that account or that category after some expenses have been paid?
That's a good question. Essentially, these numbers will get rejiggered after the audit is in. These are numbers that were budgeted essentially to be allocated to each of these programs or held in reserve for, again, to be able to either provide matching funds for projects like Prop 68, the Prop 68 grant funded projects, to help partially fund or fully fund projects coming out of the Parks Master Plan, or to fund increases to the maintenance budget as needed on an ongoing basis.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, yeah, my first question was, and thank you for having this presentation. I think it's going to help a little bit for a lot of the questions we're getting. But one of the kind of main sources of concern we've gotten here on the commission is about litter, and specifically about litter in the creek. And looking back at you had these different areas. It looked like there were like 5 divisions, like parks and so. And I wanted to know kind of where the creeks fit into that, and because specifically, I guess, I'm not sure how many creeks there are. I think it's 5 creeks in Albany, but specifically Cerrito Creek seems to be the one that I've seen. And maybe, yeah, you can just comment on what's happening with litter and what efforts you're making to improve the situation there.
Sure. The creeks are kind of managed a little bit differently from the rest of our maintenance areas. We do work pretty closely with Margot, who's the Creeks and Open Space Coordinator, particularly if she needs help removing larger items from a creek. That's not something that she can do easily with her crew. But as far as like litter within the creeks, I think I don't know how much she ends up spending. Maybe Mark can speak to that. And also, the other thing with the litter in the creeks is that falls into our stormwater program. So we have a number of different measures that we implement through our stormwater program to reduce that litter in the creeks. And speaking of state mandates, there is a newer part of our basically that it is a regional permit for discharging into the bay that has a lot of new requirements for how much litter and other items they can get into the creeks and get into the bay.
Just to jump in here too, Margot. So Margot has sort of you might call it a separate crew. We have, I don't know if you recall, a couple of years ago, we entered into a contract with Urban Tilth to provide maintenance and management of open spaces. So she provides some of that work through that contract. And, if there's a big issue, we supplement that, obviously. And then Razu makes a really good point about the new municipal permit that has trash capture requirements. So yeah, we recognize that's a big issue.
Okay, great. Yeah, another unfunded mandate, sounds like. Okay, my next question was about the restroom cleaning, the restroom cleaning schedule. And what I noticed was, it looks like, because overtime rules and whatever, it looks like there's not as much cleaning done on the weekend. And I'm just thinking, well, that's when people are going to be using restrooms most. So could you just give me maybe, and if you have to come back to us next time, but just give me a ballpark idea of what would it cost the city to say just specifically at Memorial Park to have the restroom cleaned more frequently, say on, have the same cleaning schedule on the weekend as during the week? Or maybe just how much money do we spend on cleaning? So, and you don't have to answer now, but do you have any idea of that, or anyone?
Off the top of my head, I don't have those numbers at my fingertips. And I think it would depend a little bit on when we ask our janitorial contractor. We just recently bumped up the living wage for any contracts that we have, so that does increase the costs for cleaning.
Okay.
Razu, we do have weekend Saturday service on Memorial Park and Ocean View Park.
Yes.
During May through September.
Right.
So that's baked into what we already do. But your point is very valid about that may need to increase, and that's something we're looking at of how we can provide that level of service, and whether that happens, during the summer months and then tailors it down. But yeah.
But one thing that I had meant to include in the presentation that I forgot to mention was we are now have been finally able to staff up and be fully staffed with our maintenance crew. And one thing that we are considering looking at is the possibility of having a maintenance person on regularly on the weekends, not just on those holidays. So that person could more regularly check in on those parks and address those issues with either cleaning or restocking things before they get to the point where it's inconvenient or not so nice for the public.
Okay, that sounds great. Go ahead. Yes, Mark?
I'm sorry, I was just going to say that I don't know if anybody actually said the number. We have 6 maintenance workers. They are a really hardworking crew for the whole city. So.
Okay, great. So the last question, I promise, is about these lead workers. And so it sounds like the Parks and Rec Commission and Open Space being what it was, it looks like our area of responsibility is kind of going to be divided between 2 of these lead workers. Could you elaborate just a little bit on what their role will be and whether or not we'll see one of them at one of our future meetings? Good.
Their role is really to be kind of our eyes and ears in the parks. And having said that, they will be working in all the different areas. We have, as Devora mentioned, we have kind of a relatively small crew that has to do quite a large, there's a large number of things, quite a breadth of tasks that they take care of, even on just a typical week, including potholes, painting, installing signs, plumbing work at the parks, mowing, and on, in addition to kind of our regular weekly maintenance tasks that I laid out with our trash run. I don't see the maintenance workers necessarily being so much of a kind of a public person who would go out and interface with the commission per se, but that's certainly something we would consider making an introduction once that worker has kind of gotten into the role a little bit more.
Okay, great. Pose Commissioner Kenneth.
Thank you. One more question. When you brought up compost, it seems the compost I've seen, and I haven't seen Albany's, but in other cities, has a lot of plastic in it. Is there a way of getting a higher quality? It seems odd that we're picking up the trash and then we're spreading the compost, which is full of plastic, and that's washing into the creek, and it's kind of problematic. I've heard that some communities have less trash in their compost, or less plastic in their compost than others, and I've heard that you can select that. I'm not sure if that's true.
Compost is not necessarily one area where I have a whole lot of expertise, but my understanding is that yes, you can select different grades of compost. I think this is going to be a big, long process to get to the point where we're not only purchasing the right amount of stuff, but also the right quality. Finding suppliers that had the mulch that met this requirement has been a real slog. The compost has been easier to find, particularly because waste management and other waste haulers in the area have been collecting organic waste to be turned into compost for years now, and this is going to drive the market for that. But that's something we want to keep an eye on. I think that's a good point, that we want to make sure we're getting the right quality of product, particularly if we're required to buy that much of it, we better be getting something good.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Last call. Any questions from Commissioner? No. Okay. So we'll go to, is there, let's see if there's any public comment. We have a lot of public. Okay. Yeah, we do have two with hands up. Okay. So can we let them in? And I just want to remind you, we're still on item 5, the Public Works presentation. This isn't the time to talk about C3. So do we want to let someone in? Kathy.
Hi, my name is Kathy Cheruskin, and I'm the USA Pickleball Ambassador for Albany and surrounding area. I'm so thrilled to hear that pickleball is starting to ease its way into your planning and discussions. I think this is a really crucial time when you are choosing your designer and contractor to involve the pickleball community, because some of our Albany players and elsewhere travel 30, 40 miles a day to all the courts in the surrounding areas, and every one of them has some very great points about them and some weaknesses. So we'd really like to offer some advice to the planners when it comes to that point. It's not just, what paint colors you choose or where you put the posts and nets and everything. It's, some of the really important things are how far up off the ground are the nets? Can you roll the ball under it? And even more important, where can people gather? Because these are going to be very, very popular courts, and it's going to be crowded. And it's crucial that there's a good way that the crowd can be controlled, and that they have a good spot to stand and wait and get to know each other and lay down their paddles and that kind of thing while they're waiting to get onto the courts. So there's a lot of information and, of course, opinion among the pickleball players, but we would really like to be included to try and guide these to being the best courts in the whole area. Thank you.
Okay, Julia. Can we let Julia in? Or Julia, hi.
Hi, my name is Julia Hatton. I just want to say that I'm incredibly impressed. I love living in Albany, and in particular, I love all of the public amenities that are available. And just listening to the amount of work that is done, really behind the scenes, that I've never even thought about, I'm just sort of blown away, especially when you ultimately shared the budget that you have to work with. So thank you for the incredible work that you do, making this such a strong community.
You're welcome, and thanks for your comment. Deborah Bernhardt. Jeffrey Hatton. Hi, Jeffrey.
Hey there. I also just wanted to say we joined to talk about the tree, and we'll get there. I know we're not there yet, but did want to say both my wife and I have been very impressed by just all the work that goes into keeping the city going and clean and wonderful, and wanted to compliment you all as well as the excellent compliments my wife gave. So thank you again.
Thank you. I'll pass that on to our crew. I know they work really hard, so they'll appreciate that.
Wow, this is the Hall of Glorious Praise. I love it. Well, it does look like maybe, is that everyone? No one else wants to chime
Or
in.
no other hands up.
That was pleasant getting those letters of appreciation. Okay, so is there any commissioner comment? Oh, wait. There's one person. They just showed up here. Deborah Bernhardt is back. Let's let Deborah in. Hi, Deborah. She's still on mute. Is she on mute or we have her?
Unmute. Is that?
Oh, there we go. Hi, Deborah.
Hi. I just wanted to add to what Kathy already said, that it's truly exciting to hear that there could be some movement with pickleball in Albany, because I've been involved with the project for 5 or 6 years. So it's going to be a big celebration when it happens. And I agree with Kathy that it's going to be very popular, and having an area for people to congregate, not on the courts for safety reasons and so many other things, is going to be important, and I would be happy to help. I still play pickleball 4 or 5 days a week, and very involved with the organization of things. So thank you, and I just really appreciate all of you.
Oh, great. Okay, now I believe it was Commissioner Kent or Commissioner Martin. Okay, Commissioner Martin, thank you again for your comment.
Yeah, 2 items. One was to comment was if the public works staff could suggest how interested parties like Kathy and Deborah of a pickleball group would get involved. Who would they reach out to, and what kind of time frame is best?
If you could just email, and I don't know if it's emailed through the Commissioner Sid, if you email, get the commission, or I don't know whose emails are public, and if you can email your contact information, we'll reach out to you here shortly, and we'd love to hear your thoughts about amenities. We've thought about some of how to structure the courts, and there's a lot to it.
Okay, thanks. And then another was getting back to the agenda item. It's just a little thing that I think it would be helpful for the community if when Public Works sends this the text over for the agenda item for this presentation that happens about twice a year, that it included a mention of Measure M, so that the public knows that this thing they voted on is going to be the money is going to be discussed as to how it's being spent, and that there's some oversight, and this is one of those aspects.
Good point. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Does that satisfy your questions? Yeah. Any other commission? Okay. Well, I guess what I would say. Oh wait, we should finish. Yeah.
Well, I just want to kind of chime in. I don't want to go unspoken. Yeah, it looks like a great job, and I know how much use Memorial Park gets, and people complain about the trash out there, but they have no idea how much trash gets spread and how much gets picked up. And if all you can find on a Monday morning is 5 pieces of trash, that's, that's a good sign to me. Because actually, I've seen a lot of people do pick up trash, so you guys are getting most of it. But there's a lot of people who don't put the trash down. I see picking it up too. There's a lot of community spirit that way. That's all.
Okay. Well, I guess what I wanted to say is, this is a really great presentation. I don't remember having anything like this before. Maybe, I guess we probably did, and it just wasn't as noteworthy. But I think one thing is this just mainly came out of the public comment, because there is a lot of discussion about pickleball, and it almost seems like it should be the subject of a future meeting of the commission. But I guess we can talk about that in the future agenda item. Okay, I think thank you all for coming, and let's move on to item 6.1 or 6 dash. Do we have a staff report? Did I lose audio?
Nope.
Oh, I heard someone. Okay, someone speak, please.
We're bringing John on.
Hi, I'm getting set up here.
Okay. I thought maybe my Bluetooth had gone out because there was this pregnant silence.
There we go. I had to
Take
get
your time.
All right. So I have some tree removals to discuss tonight, and I'm going to go right to sharing my screen for presentation, some pictures of these trees. Is that showing on the screen?
Yeah, it looks great, John.
Okay. Well, I just want to preface by an update to this photo. This is a more recent shot. Here's the old one. Here's the new one. Trees are growing. The trees in the back were recently heavily pruned because they dropped some very large limbs. And you can see here, these are pear trees. Those are just above the Albany, the blue Albany sign. So I just want to throw that in there. We had these trees cleaned up really well, and hopefully we'll get some more life out of them. All right, so I have a couple things. I have some dead tree removals, emergency tree removal, and street tree removal applications. So we've recently removed 3 dead trees, 1040 Ventura, an Australian willow that the property owner actually called into me to take a look at, and it was dead and needed to come out. Australian willows, the handful that we have throughout the city are really struggling. They're not doing very well. Similar with Jacaranda, 1014 Pomona, there was a dead Jacaranda. It's a really sensitive species. It needs to be kept up. The watering needs to be kept up on, and they are beautiful tree if they're healthy and in the right situation, but that's a struggling species. And ginkgo, 909 Ordway, there was a dead ginkgo. Another tree that's struggling pretty much, and if you take a look at the tree outside the community center in the little courtyard there, that's a ginkgo, and that tree is sadly on its way out, I believe also. So here's I'm just going to show quick pictures of these to get through. We got a lot more to talk about. So this is the Australian willow, smaller size. These trees get twice the size of this. We have a couple twice the size. This is the Jacaranda. You see a big wound on the trunk on this one, possibly is what affected it. There could have been some decay in that caused this to die. But again, the drought, the weather, the changing weather extremes are really affecting our trees. And this is the ginkgo at 909 Ordway that we removed. Okay, quickly moving along, we did one emergency removal. 1072 Nielsen, property owner called me in to take a look at it. And this is a really nice crepe myrtle, pretty large for a crepe myrtle. And I looked at it and I was hoping we could save the tree, and I had one of our contractors go take a look at it to give me a price on cabling and bracing the tree to give it some more life. But he looked at it and said that it's really, he didn't want to take the risk of cabling this and walking away and having the tree split out anyway. You can see this big crack on the inside, on the property side of the house. On the street side, there's another crack, so it's cracked right through the center. You can see looking at the, actually that last one was looking down the block. This one is on the street side looking in. So there's three starting to crack a little bit on one of the other sides of the sidewalk lengthwise along the sidewalk. So we, I talked to the property owner, we discussed it and kind of decided, yeah, we don't want the risk. We wanted to get this out of here. So we had the contract to go and remove that tree. All of these trees, as any removal in the city, will receive a replacement tree this winter. This is just another shot. The tree was doing a little bit of sidewalk damage, but not really the reason why we removed it. So we'll move along to tree removal applications. I grouped these together because they're right next to each other. They kind of support each other. They depend on each other. They're really close proximity. So I'm going to present these somewhat one at a time, but in one section here. We had a limb drop on the tree at 1431, which is the tree to the left in this picture. And the limb, this is a picture of the limb. It's about 25 feet long. Didn't cause any damage, luckily, but this is the kind of thing that we really worry about. Where am I? I'm going too fast. That we worry about with the liquid embers. You can see this nice clean break on this tree. There was no decay. This didn't even have included bark or poor branching structure at this point. It just broke clean from the tree. And this is what this species of tree does, and which is one of the reasons these are a pretty high risk tree and we have many of them in the city. The sidewalk was repaired recently, and you can see here some shots of where there was some root pruning, and there was really large root pruning done here. I'm not sure, I don't remember looking at this tree, so I don't know if I had any say in what happened with the roots pruned here, but it just seems like large roots were just cleanly cut, and cleanly cut is good, but these are really large roots in here. On all these pictures, you could see that the roots are kind of dying back. You could see the dead, dry spots with no bark on these roots, and that really stresses the tree out. It doesn't necessarily make it unstable, but it's stressing the tree out. The roots are supplying the tree with minerals and moisture and air exchange in the soil. And when the trees lose a lot of roots, they tend to shed limbs, branches, leaves to compensate for the lost support. And you can see here that sort of the right thing was done, but again, the liquid ember roots are so aggressive and so large and so shallow that there was some major pruning done on these roots. So they did the clean cuts on the roots. They curved out the sidewalk a little bit. It's a nice wide planting strip, but still the liquid amber attacked, and it will continue to attack. Here's another view. There's the limb that I had to clean up. It's pushing out the curb a little bit here. It's not too bad, but there is, if you look right under the limb, that chunk of the gutter is lifted up from, here's a better shot. This is really jacked up here where the roots are getting out into the street and pushing the curb and the gutter out. Some issues with this tree, this stem on the right side, you can see this is considered a poor branching union, and especially with the size of this stem, there's a lot of weight there. This is where, as the tree grows, it expands in size. People mistakenly believe that trees grow and all of this moves upward, but actually it expands and the tips grow out. So as this thing is expanding, it's starting to push against itself. And this is a point where this is one of the major faults on this tree. As this pushes against itself, it looks like there's even a bit of a crack starting to the right of that knot that you can see in the middle. As this expands, it's pushing against itself, and eventually this huge stem is going to fall out into the street. And this stem is 4 times the size of the 25-foot limb that dropped, I think, off of this stem, actually. Here's a little bit closer. You can see how it looks like a crack is beginning to start. And where this knot is, you can see it's black in there. That's decay, that's fungus eating away the dead portion where a limb was pruned off. It's healing over a little bit. That whitish section is the wound, but it's healing over a bit. But there's still that wound and that section inside that's a weak point in the tree, and it's right next to this this trunk union where makes this tree a little frightening to me. And then opposite that side, there's a similar thing where it's not quite healing over that well. There was a limb removed here at some point, and you can see the black, the mold or fungus on this tree that's starting to eat away the dead section. That's the knot, basically, that's left in the tree. Higher up the tree, similar thing. There's included bark here. It looks like a crack forming. More likely, this is just where the tree just keeps expanding on itself, but eventually this is going to push itself apart. And these stems are have a high probability of breaking out and coming down and possibly causing some serious damage. This is just a view from the other side. On the left side of this, you see a little yellowish tint, and there's sort of a crack there. This is a site where there's some weeping. This is a sign that there may be some kind of canker or what's called a slime mold, a bacterial infection on the tree. This is another thing that weakens the tree. When the tree is weakened and stress, especially liquid amber, they tend to shed limbs. So I don't know if this is coming through that well, but again, on the left side, on that lighter part of the bark, there's a dark strip that's a crack in the bark. It's not a crack in the limb, but it's the bark opening up where there's weeping. The sap is weeping, and that's caused by some sort of infection. Here's a better shot of it. You can see the yellow staining on either side of this crack and on the bark here. And there's little spots here and there around the trunk on this tree that have that. Here's another shot of that. And a closer shot of that. You can see some black staining, and that's sort of the weeping there. And the yellow staining, I think, is just a mold or a fungus or something that's attacking the sap that's weeping from the tree. Again, here's just a picture of my posting, but you can see how the limb that is posted, the trunk that's posted, is really vulnerable to breaking out. So I'm concerned about this tree. Once liquid ambers start dropping limbs, they don't kind of get better and stop dropping limbs. They just continue, and more frequently as they grow and get older. And I've presented I did a presentation about liquid amber to the commission in the past, and one of the aspects of liquid amber is when there's extremes in dry weather and extreme moisture, that stresses these trees out too, and they're more they tend to drop limbs under these conditions. And with the weather that we've been having, last winter we had one intense period of heavy rainfall, and then we had basically nothing since then. And the soil is really dry this year. And I'm somewhat surprised we're not seeing more limb drop, but I'm thankful that we haven't either. We have in a couple other trees, but not too many liquid amber.
John, I just wanted to cut in here for a minute. I think, and just procedurally, we're going to separate. Well, we're definitely going to separate the Pierce Street. So it probably doesn't make sense for you to talk about that one now. But also, I think we've probably spent enough time and gotten a good view of why. So what I'd like to do, if it's, I think I'd like to discuss these two together, and if we have to, vote on them separately. But I would like to, unless there's much more you want to say about these two.
Well, this was just the first one.
Oh, I thought you were talking about both of them too. So that's what. Okay, so this is the 1431.
Yeah, I'm sort of trying to move along quickly because there's a lot here. So
are
this
they very? They're different addresses, right? But are they very?
Yes. This is, on the left is 1431. The right is 1433.
Okay, so like they were part of one property or something at one time. It looks like. So yeah, let's.
They're close. They're very close.
Give us your report on both of them, and then I think we'll go to the
sure,
and then circle back to the Pierce Street.
So this is a Google shot from a couple of years ago, but the limb on the left, sort of in the foreground, is the one that broke out recently. I just added that so you can see what they look like at that point. But also in the winter, you could see all these different knots, all these holes. I forget how do you highlight this? Hit shift and click. No, that's not it. Sorry. Anyway, I'll just try to describe. You see all these knots, all these round circles on the tree. These are all branches that have been pruned out, and they're in various states of healing over and decaying at the same time. So there's, I don't know the history of these trees. Some of these, the property owner told me that there were other limbs that dropped, so these may just be where the stub from the broken limb was cut off. Suspecting that for some of these trees. And again, there's the tree next to my truck. My truck's about 22 feet long, I think, and that's the limb that came down. So now we're looking at 1433, the tree on the right here. While I was at 1431, I walked over and took a quick look at 1433, and I was kind of shocked at what I saw here. This is basically four trunks. We talk about co-dominant leaders where there's two trunks competing to be the dominant leader, the dominant trunk in a tree, and eventually one of them wins and the other one breaks out. Here you have two facing us right there. Where this is breaking out, it's actually two. Well, let's start from the bottom. There's two right there. There's co-dominant leaders, and then the one closest to us again has the included bark and the competing limbs. Up on the top left, you see the poor branching union too. The close V connection is where this is where the trees are more apt to break out. So here's a little bit closer. You can see this included bark here. The dark looks like a crack there. You can see a couple old cuts that are in halfway healed over, but I think they've been there a long time. Looking at it from the street, we're looking at the trunk, the east side and the west side of the trunk. And we're seeing what looks like it's starting to crack right down the middle of this tree. There's, again, this is included bark, but it looks like it's pushing down. You can see the black line, where the bark is splitting out a little, and it looks like that's a stress point on the tree where it's starting to crack. Look at an older picture. Well, actually, this is Google Street View. You can even see here, you can see where there's some darker marking, which is indicating some weeping here, some sap. So that's indicating that there's a little crack happening there, and sap is weeping out of this tree. Again, the same shot, but this is June. That was January. This is June. Same thing, Google Street View. You can see this from Google Street View. This tree looks a little bit unnerving. And there's these large wounds that are in various states of healing over. There's some wound wood, but they're not really closing up all the way. This is 2015 I'm not sure why I included this. I think just to show some of these limbs are gone, and I'm guessing some of these horizontal limbs have already broken out. But then I get around to the other side, and I look here, and there's an area where a stem was removed at some point, and it's just rotted. It's just decayed inside here. This is a little collection of muck inside the tree. I've tapped on it. I think I tried to include, I have a video here. I don't know if this will work. You can hear the hollowness.
Can't hear the audio.
You can hear the audio. Okay. Well, that
Because
doesn't work.
you
But
can turn it up somehow. I mean, I heard a little bit, but I think the nature of the various systems is that
yeah. Okay. Well,
I'm not hearing.
this is just my quick test of to see what kind of decay is here. And this sounds like a drum, and the rest of the tree sounds like a rock. And this is right at the intersection of all the main stems from this tree. If we maybe go back, you can see here it's about 4.5 feet from the ground, and it's right where all these main stems come together. So it's decaying right down the middle of this tree. So that was a big a red flag for this tree. And again, here you see the yellow staining, there's some sap and possibly some canker. Again, with trees are stressed, and this is the time when they get attacked by diseases, insects, whatever. And trees are always attacked by diseases and insects, but this is where they take hold when trees are stressed in drought conditions. This is just a shot of a large lateral. That's the type of limb that fell on the other tree, and it just kind of, here there's what's considered a good branching union, but on these trees, they will just break unexpectedly, and that's what happened on the other tree. And this limb is facing out over the property. Here's some more horizontal trees that are kind of limbs that are kind of drooping down, that are likely limbs to break out on this tree. So here's another shot, the posting. You can see these two stems. You can see if you follow the line from the bottom up, you see a little light coming through, and then the stems come back together again. This is all considered included bark. This is just going to keep expanding, push against each other, and this tree will split. This tree, I think, will split like a banana, peeling a banana, if we leave this in here for too long. And then I posted both sides of the trees. I posted poles across the street. I want to be sure that we're, letting everyone know that this is happening. This is a pole on the other side of the street. What else is there to say here? I think that's it.
Okay. So I do want to stop here before we go on to Pierce Street, because it'll be numb, or everyone will forget what we looked at. So, and then we do have to vote on. I think we're going to have to vote on the two trees separately, but I think, can we discuss them? Isabel, can we discuss the trees together and then vote on them separately, or do we have to discuss them separately?
No, I think you can discuss them together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense to me because they're similar. But I did want to just lead off with one question, and then we'll have the go around with the commissioner. But John, it sounded like the homeowner contacted you about one, but you noticed the tree next door when you were there. Was that what I heard, or is it something different?
Well, a limb dropped on the one tree, and while I was there, the homeowner came out, and we kind of glanced over at the second tree, and I said, I need to go take a look at this. And when just from her property, that tree looked a little frightening to me. And when I took a closer look, the 1433 tree is actually worse than the 1431 tree.
Okay, so it wasn't their request, but did you get feedback from, I guess, one or both of the owners about what their feeling was about the removal?
Oh, they both sent in applications. They sent in
Okay,
applications.
they filed the application. Okay, that's what I was looking for.
Yes,
Okay.
they're worried, you know, they're worried.
So, yeah, so we can't say that they weren't supportive of it. Okay.
And I did get an email. I don't know if it's time now, but I got an email from the owner of 1433 because they couldn't make it to the meeting tonight, but they just wanted to let me know that they're in favor of the removal, and they said that anyone who opposes it should send their kids to hang out under the tree like his kids have to.
Okay, thanks. Any questions from commissioners? Okay. Commissioner Abbott.
Yeah. So I I'm just curious. Say that you had to save one of these trees for some reason. Are there things that you could do if you had to save the tree? And what would you like? Could you brace it? Could you cable it? What could you possibly do to save one of these trees?
To save the tree, I don't know. We're talking about liability here for the city and for the property owner, because in Albany, the property owner has responsibility for the safety around street trees, even though it's considered public property. I mean, you could do some heavy pruning on this, which really would result in a flush of growth next year, which is going to just add a lot of end weight to these limbs, and we'll have the same situation where limbs are going to drop out, and we're just postponing huge limbs dropping on the ground. And if this were a different species, yeah, I think we could work with this, being that these are they're just unsuitable trees for an urban setting, I believe, you know. I mean, not that I believe this, but it's evidenced. My experience in Albany has just been, you know, liquid amber after liquid amber. You guys have dealt with many of these, and it's the same situation. We, you know, in the winter storms, these things drop limbs. In the summer, when it's dry and there's drought stress, they drop limbs. It's the only tree it's sort of like the blue gum eucalyptus tree does similar. These are the, you know, that's the wildland tree. That's our worst tree. This is the urban tree. That's not a good tree. It's a beautiful tree, but the risk, the liability of leaving a tree once it starts showing, and we're not systematically going through town and clear cutting liquid ambers, but once they start showing problems like dropping huge limbs, then it's time to really think about pulling the plug and leave it there. It's, like I said, they don't repair themselves. They don't get better. They're going to get worse over time.
That was one of my questions. I appreciate you answered it during your presentations. I appreciated that. So say you'd gotten to this tree 20 or 30 years ago. Is there something that could have been done that would have prevented this way back when?
Remove it for cheaper and
okay.
No, I mean, 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't really, I think that's when this mass planting happened, 30, 40 years ago. And 20, 30 years ago, we would have looked at it and said, oh, it's a good tree. Maybe it drops a branch here and there, not a big problem. But now that they're 50, 60, 70 feet tall and they drop limbs that are 8, 10, I mean, an 8-inch, that was like an 8-inch limb. An 8-inch limb that's 25 feet tall weighs, I don't know, but it's, you know, I wouldn't want to be hit by it. And I wouldn't want you to be hit by it. I wouldn't want your car.
I'm not making an argument. Yeah, I'm not making an argument. I'm just asking questions.
I'm just stressing that.
I think people are going to be interested in these answers. I'm just curious.
Gentlemen, can we helping make our decisions here? So
I think that's what I'm doing. Thank you.
Okay.
So in your opinion, there's really nothing like cabling or bracing wouldn't be able to preserve one of these trees, or either or both, or.
I don't know. I think cabling and bracing is more for stems, like the second tree with the multi-stem situation. But on a tree like that, you have the decay in between, and something's going to give, and it's going to. Trees like they're regarded as a soft hardwood. It's a hardwood because it's a forest hardwood tree, but it's a brittle tree. And once that decay happens and a big wind comes and you have these limbs cabled together, they're just all they're gonna pull each other down, and maybe more catastrophic than just one section of it splitting out. That's my feeling about that second tree.
Yeah,
anyway.
No, I understood. All right, well, thank you very much. Appreciate the answers. Thank you.
Mr. Kent.
Yeah, you sort of answered one question. So what was the age, or how long ago do you think these were planted?
They were planted, the mass plantings done in the maybe late 70s, mid late 70s, I believe. So they're 40-ish, 45 years old, maybe.
Okay. And when you don't really know exactly what you think you stated. Just want to make sure I understand it. There's no on the second tree, not the one that was called in, but the second tree. There's nothing imminent like next week that you can tell, but although it could be next week, but you don't know if it's going to be 6 months down the road, 1 week down the road, a year down the road, that crack will happen.
It's not it's not an if, it's a when kind of situation. Not if, but when situation.
When, right?
It's hard to say. I mean, it could happen while we're speaking. It could drop.
Right. And so if it's going to happen, couldn't we do a reduction in it, and then so that the visual impact and the neighborhood impact, the shade and the environmental and the natural impact isn't so clear cut? We just take everything out, but you're reducing it. One, maybe you have to remove one and you reduce part of the second one. And then when you get the other ones growing, then you remove the third part. So it's a transition, so to speak, rather than just kind of take it all out and put in 2 small trees.
I think you're still leaving parts of the tree that are still there's still probability of limbs falling, even if you do reduction. Again, I mentioned before, if you're pruning these heavy, they're gonna flush out again next year. They're gonna want to compensate for the lost foliage, which is their power supply. It's what they feed themselves, and this is what happens with trees. This is why people mistakenly top trees, because they see that it flushes out the next year. But that's a stress response. It's trying to survive. It's trying to produce energy by doing that.
not topping, but removing one or two of the major limbs, right?
Well, yeah, but the limbs of concern. I mean, there's limbs of concern. There's lateral limbs, but on here there's stems that are concerned. As I started out on the 1431 tree on the left, that's a trunk of a tree that's got included bark that's pushing up against the other trunk, and the second tree has multiple instances of that. You know, my feeling. I know it's painful to see these big trees go, but it's also painful. It could be more painful if we leave them in place. My feeling is you take them out, you start with another more appropriate tree now. I've brought this up before, we've been planting red maples, which grows to be almost the same type of tree, same look, same full color, same full canopy, but it doesn't have all these problems with dropping limbs and splitting out and ripping up sidewalks and that sort of thing. So I just feel, you know, our next generation is going to have a beautiful tree here. Right now, yes, there's a changing look to some areas, some properties, some streets. The street has had a lot of these trees taken out, but there's a reason, you know, we're not just randomly going up and down the block, which
in some ways we are just randomly going up and down the block, because that you just happened to be there and you looked at this next tree.
Well, no, I was there because a large limb fell out of the tree. I didn't just stop and say, okay.
No, the second tree though.
I could, oh, yes and no. I mean, I could stop a lot of liquid ambers. I could stop and take a closer look, but and say, yeah, this tree is scary. Many of them are. But really, when there's an issue, when something comes up, that's when we act on it. So it's not just a random situation. It's when, when there's an issue, I think it's time to say, okay, this tree is telling us that it's not happy here, and time to.
Yeah, and again, I wanted to interrupt there just for a couple of things. The one is because Post Commissioner Chang Frank has joined us, and I wanted to ask, are you here now, Commissioner Frank, or are you reclusing yourself from the program?
I had to recuse myself.
Okay, okay, thank you. Yeah, okay. And then I wanted to update you where we were at, just because you arrived. And so what we're doing is we're discussing the two trees on Washington together because they kind of together, but we are going to vote on them separately. So that's just to update you in case you're following along. So, and did you have more questions, Commissioner?
No, thanks. Thank you, John.
Okay. Any other commissioners have questions? Okay, and yeah, by the way, if anyone has an economic interest within 500 feet, now's the time to speak. So I did notice there's a lot of public comment. And I think what I would ask the members of the public that want to comment on one of these two trees, if you could raise your hand now, so I'll have an idea if I have to limit the time. I've got 4 so far, 5. Yeah, so 5. Okay, well, all right. I think we can keep it at 3 minutes. I'll give everyone the usual 3 minutes. And just what I would ask you to do is try not to be repetitive with previous students. Say something shorter, like I agree with so. But I'm not going to hold you to that. So, okay, let's start letting people in. Jeffrey Hatton, I believe, is the first.
Hey, can you hear me? Can I start with asking why someone had to recuse themselves?
Yes, I can explain that to you. If you have that question, it's the law that if you have an economic interest in a matter within 500, this is California law, within 500 feet of a matter, you must recluse yourself by California law. And any one of us commissioners are responsible for that. We could face fines and or jail time for voting. So we're not going to do it. But you can continue with and I'll reset the clock because that's the good. If you want to comment, you don't.
Right.
Yeah,
Thank you. Appreciate that. Mm-hmm. I'm really glad we paused on this photo. These are 2 beautiful trees. I guess, John, I really appreciate all your thoughtful comments, the analysis you did on this. What I was left with feeling is, okay, the second tree sounds really problematic. The hollow noise, everything you were finding there. To me, what you were describing there was very similar to what I heard about the dead trees or the cracked trees and why you were taking them down. The first tree you were talking about, though, I didn't hear those same things. And I became a little bit worried about your sentiments just for this species of tree and maybe some predisposed biases you have towards them. What I saw there was you talking about, well, this tree's a problem, limbs drop. I guess I was left with limbs drop from trees. This is a thing. I come from the Midwest where we have storms much more violently than here. And it's known, you have a tall tree, limbs fall. And I guess I was just left feeling, I wasn't feeling like you had come across a really, I don't know, you showed that crack in the limb on the right. And I was left with, take that limb off. I get it. Look at that. That is a crack. It's forming. That's a big risk. It's a huge thing. But with the first tree versus the second, I wasn't left thinking that we had really explored the options to save this tree and prevent this from happening, that we had to just cut it down. That was the only option. I was also like, look, I'm just going to be real, pissed off by the owner's comments where they will keep your kid under that tree comment. I do keep my kid under that tree. A lot of these photos have literally shown the swing that my kid rides on this tree, that my kid begs me to take me to this tree to ride on that swing. And so I'm not a tree expert, but if there's a way to save this beautiful tree that took, I think you said something like 40, 50 years to grow, I'd ask that we consider it. And it just seems like the situation on tree 1 is a bit different than the situation on tree 2.
Let me cut in here just for a moment.
And with my 5 seconds, I will leave.
We give him an extra minute because I think I want to give everyone 4 minutes. So is he still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
I want to give you another minute to talk, and I'll give everyone else. Because we're doing 2 trees, I think we'll give you 4 minutes each.
Sure. And I mean, really, that's about what I had to say. But it's just, you see here, this picture of these trees shows what they are. And I don't know. They're beautiful. They're beautiful. They are some of the tallest trees in the area that I have within walking distance. They are so beautiful that they are an attraction for people. It's known within the neighborhood where I live. This is the swing tree. It's known. And so, if there is a way to save tree 1, it would be appreciated. So that's everything I got to say. Thank you. I really have appreciated the thoughtfulness of this here. And if there's a way even to extend the life of this tree a few years, I think it's worth it. Thanks, folks.
Okay, and also, before we go on to the next commenter, or maybe as we're going on to them, John, I wanted to see if you could find a tree that maybe, or a picture that maybe a better picture of both the trees. Let's go on to the next commenter.
Can I respond to the comments quickly as we're going?
Yeah. Oh, no, we can't do that.
No.
Well, we'll do your comments at the end. We'll have this further discussion at the end, but what I was going to ask is while the public's commenting that we can have a better picture of. And if you can't, it's okay. I know you're doing your best, but yeah, something like this where there's public hit. And then as the people are talking, then we'll be able to get it better. But I don't want you to
swing in this picture.
Yeah. Okay, who's the next commenter? And I'll give you 4 minutes.
Hi, is this me?
Hi, Aaron. We hear you good.
Hi, yeah. Isabel, you were going to put up some slides for me?
Yeah, John, if you wouldn't mind just not sharing for a moment so I could pull up Aaron's slides, please.
Okay, I just, I live right here in this neighborhood, and I've been to, I think, all the meetings where these trees have been decided to come down. I just want to give some perspective. I'll wait for this to come up. If you could start with, I guess this is the before, and this is just all within a block of where these 2 trees are. These have been taken down since last year. So there have been 6 of the largest trees that have been taken down, and each one of them, there's a meeting like this, and there's always like this branch is a little troublesome, and we're worried about it, and they've come in 2s, and each time, one of them was taken down without a meeting because it was done in emergency. But the other ones were done in pairs like this. And they're always hard decisions, but they're always taken down. And what's happened now is it's a systematic removal of all of the trees from this one block. And so that's before. After the next. So I just want to just contextualize them. So the next slide, please. This is before. There are 2 big trees right here, just down the block. You could actually see the ones that are up for removal now. And then next is after those were taken down, and you can see how sort of stark that gets. Okay, next one, please. This is before. These were just taken out a couple months ago, and then after. And again, the character of this neighborhood is just becoming much more bleak. Again, next one. This is before. And by the way, I just want you to notice the notice on this tree. You can see some clear tape at the bottom. That's really all the public got. On the other side of that tree was a piece of paper that if you were walking back there and turned to look at it, you would see it. But this is the before of this nice tree, which is right across the street from the trees that are up for removal. And the next is after. And so this is what's happening to our neighborhood. And I understand that each one of these trees had a situation. You can go to the next. These are just the 2 trees that are up for removal now. This is the before picture that I don't want to have to show the after of this one. Okay, you can take those down. That's all I had for that. Each time there's 2 trees up, and each time both of them come down. And I know these are hard decisions, but hard decisions mean that sometimes we keep some of them. I understand when John says that, well, they're going to cause problems and they're dangerous. No commissioner ever wants to take any risk with public safety, but a lot of this is, they are trees. I mean, we have trees everywhere, and every single tree is a risk at some point that something could happen. But I think that as representatives of the public, I think I would ask you to also consider the other benefits and the other of the trees. We have a climate action plan that was just passed, and one of the top provisions that the community voted on was to keep and save our canopy, to prevent the urban heat island effect, which we've all experienced this week, and we're removing the canopy just one at a time. So until we get a master tree plan in place, which is supposed to be coming, I would ask that we just hold off, because there is a de facto policy now of taking out this species, which, by the way, Berkeley doesn't have that policy. Their policy is to trim them. Maybe some other cities do have that policy. Maybe if that becomes our policy, we should have it, but there should be public comment and input, and we should decide on that as a community. And so I would just ask, sometimes tough decisions mean not always taking out every single tree every single time. And John, I thank you for your work. I know it's a hard job, and you're faced with the public interest as well.
Okay, on to the next commenter. Julia Hatton. Julia Hatton.
Hi, I just want to second the comments that Aaron Frank just made, and then my daughter would like to make some comments as well.
Okay, put her on.
Hi, my name is Ranger. I'm 8 years old, and I have been playing on the tree with the swing on Washington for 3-ish years. I was wondering if you could try to save or help the tree without cutting it down. Think of it as helping you, the earth, the tree, and all the other trees. Thank you.
Maybe, could you just, could I ask, could you have her repeat her comment, maybe speak a little louder and into the microphone?
Yes.
Can I repeat it all over?
Yeah. Just go a little closer and say it a little louder.
A little slower maybe will help.
And slower.
Okay. Hi, my name is Ranger. I am 8 years old, and I have been playing on the tree with the swing on Washington for 3 years. I was wondering if you could try to save the tree without cutting it down. Think of it as helping you, the earth, the tree, and all the other trees. Thank you.
Were you able to hear that?
Yeah, that was great. That was much better. And thank you to your daughter for keeping and continue.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, next speaker, Dee Dee Lee. Dee Dee?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
John, I want to thank you for your report. I learned a lot from what you had to say, and it has actually made me change what I'm going to say tonight. I live at 1429 Washington, and at 1427 Washington, there's another liquid amber. And the people who live in that house mistakenly thought they were responsible for that tree. And over the years, they have had it maintained. The trees at 1431 and 1433 have not had the same level of maintenance. the tree 1427 is in good shape. And the other two are not. They're not healthy. We have been out there in our bathrobes exclaiming, oh, thank God that branch didn't hit your house. Oh, thank God that branch didn't hit my car. It was an unfortunate choice to plant those trees. And now we have to pay the price. I don't want to lose the shade. My house is going to be so hot. I'm going to miss the trees. I'm going to miss the swing. But, you know, one tree has had half of its roots cut away by the sidewalk repair. It only has half of its root system now. It can't be stable. It's just a matter of time before somebody gets hurt or somebody's house or somebody's car gets damaged. So I love the trees as well as everybody else in this neighborhood, but I'm convinced by John's report that they should both be removed. Thanks for listening.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Next speaker, I believe, is Ingrid. Ingrid? Hi.
Hello. My name is Ingrid Haubusch, and I live at 732 Santa Fe, and have lived there for over 30 years. And I'm extremely concerned about the survival of our large shade trees. And I really agree with Aaron Frank and Jeremy that there is a systematic culling of these liquid amber trees. And I am sorry to say this, I feel like our urban forester is deeply prejudiced against these trees and will do nothing to try to save them. And I'm saying that, which I was not going to say because I had no reason to say that, but listening to him today is just shocking to me. That he's totally biased against these trees. He will do nothing to save them. And he has a plan to substitute basically, you know what, like actually cut them all down, John. Cut them all down and replace them with red maples that will take 100 years to grow to the size of these trees. So this is very upsetting to me. My original statement is that I'm planning as to the plan to remove these trees. I want to tell the commission that we're forming a group of Albany residents to explore options and alternatives to the removal of liquid amber trees from our community. The urban forester states that 21 liquid amber trees have been cut down in the past 6 years. He told me that in a letter. His estimate for removal of the 2 Washington streets is $6,000 per tree. So cutting down 21 trees cost the city approximately $120,000. 21 trees is a lot of trees, and $120,000 is a lot of money. Our group wants to explore alternatives to removal. To do this, we want to hire at our own expense an independent arborist to explore whether removal is indeed necessary. And I'm sorry to say that after hearing John today, I feel this is absolutely essential. I note that the application before you regarding the removal of these trees is a non-emergency request. Nobody has ever been killed or hurt in Albany by one of these branches. A couple of cars have been injured or damaged. No, every tree has limbs falling down. So the fact that there is some remote risk that somebody will get hurt is not enough to chop down these trees. In any event, I note the application before you is a non-emergency request. And I'm asking the commission to basically grant a moratorium or continuance for us to hire and pay for an independent arborist to determine whether removal is necessary or whether other measures can be taken to save these trees. I note that the arborist did not check the box that these trees are diseased on the notice attached to the trees, on the timing notice, but now maintains that at least one of these trees is diseased. I'm confused by this discrepancy. I also question the city arborist's recommendation that 2 trees in Washington have been cut down because one is unlikely to survive by itself. I note that the arborist made a similar recommendation recently to cut down 2 large liquid ambers on Santa Fe and Solano, also beautiful mature trees. They're healthy, Apparently they mess with the sidewalks, so they need to be cut down. Always two. I'd like to have an independent arborist to determine whether this is a correct recommendation as to both the Santa Fe and the Washington trees. I also question why regular maintenance, pruning of these trees has not happened and why weak limbs are not simply removed.
Thank you so much for your comments.
Well, I have another minute, I think.
Oh, no, we gave her 4 minutes. She was on for 4 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Right? Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, she was on 4 minutes. Does any other members of the public want to speak? Okay. With that, I'm going to open it up for commissioner comment discussion. But the one thing I wanted to say from the beginning, there's no de facto policy. Each tree comes to this commission and we vote on it. We see the presence. So I understand there things may look differently, but you're here witnessing. We're giving you the opportunity to come give us your input on the item. And we are not coming here with a preset, we're going to kill this tree. We're going to listen to your comments, and that's what this commission is for. So with that, I'll open it up to other. Do we have comments from commissioners? Commissioner Avenant.
I just wanted to give John an opportunity to respond to some of the. It seemed like he had some responses he'd like to make. I just wanted to be sure you had that.
I want to clarify
before we go to a discussion, because I'd like to.
Is that part of our normal process to have comments from the staff after a public comment, or I'm
yes.
kind of lost on this one? Okay, yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But I'm just confused about the order. So would we do staff?
I think it's fine to let John answer some of the questions that were raised, especially if he has a response to them.
Okay,
yes.
And then we'll have commissioner comment. Okay, that sounds fair. I know John's got it ready to talk. So.
Yeah, I have comments for most of the speakers here. And the first one is about a bias, and I don't know that I would call it a bias, more experience. I don't look at a tree and say, this is a bad tree, and no matter what, there's reasons. It just so happens that liquid ambers show me these reasons more than other species do. So, and it's not only me. There's, many arborists will, especially urban city arborists, urban foresters will tell you this is not a good tree. This tree is not planted in Albany. It's not planted in any of the surrounding cities. There's been mass removals in El Cerrito. There's been mass removals in Piedmont. The city of Sunnyvale has an actual systematic program to remove liquid ambers over time. I'm not sure where they're at. They may all have been removed already. So it's not my bias. It's the tree just not playing nice, basically, this species. Jeffrey mentioned being in the Midwest and big storms knocking limbs down. Sure, this happens, but these limbs come down with no reason. This tree, what was it, August 16th, middle of the night, no wind, no anything, big limb just drops in the street. This is the kind of unusual behavior we see from liquid amber trees. This is not something we see from all the species of trees we have. Let's see. The swing on the tree, I hate to say this, but that's inappropriate. We shouldn't have things tied to the limb of a tree, especially a tree like this that has brittle limbs that can break, but also tying something to the tree kind of strangles the tree and causes that limb to die back, maybe over time. I usually don't say anything unless it looks really bad, but this one, I didn't take a close look. I'm not sure how it's connected. Sometimes people actually put some kind of cushioning or something under it so it's not digging into the bark of the tree. So I'll leave that. Let's see. Aaron pointed out that we're taking out a lot of trees here, and yeah, we are. But again, as some of you have mentioned, these all come to the commission. We discuss each one individually, and there's reasons that I'm not just going from the block and saying tree 1, tree 2, tree 3, tree 4. Some of those trees, the one had incredible they were camphor trees that had incredible sidewalk damage. The sidewalk was lifted 2 feet or so, and it's a small planting space. Just no way we could have kept those trees. These trees we're going to see a lot. We're going to see more of these trees. I can put this up front right now. We're going to see more liquid amber removals presented to the commission. They're mature. They've been here for a long time. They're mature, and we're in this climate extreme situation and drought situation. We have these trees that want a 10, 15, 20 foot wide planting area in little tiny spaces. This street has one of the largest spaces. You can see what it's done to the sidewalk and to the street already. We don't have much room. We don't have the room for these kind of trees. They're a East Coast forest tree. Sure, in a forest, it's a great big beautiful tree where there's room. If you have a big yard, you can have this tree as long as you're willing to deal with those limbs dropping down in your backyard now and then. But yeah, I hate this, that we have to take out these large trees. I wish there's other trees. We have the Melaleuca trees along Masonic, big mature trees, lots of shade from these trees. They do very little sidewalk damage. They drop clusters once in a while, but they don't. It's not the same as a liquid amber tree. So I'm not coming to you with Melaleuca trees every time I have to go out and clean up a limb from those, because I don't expect that to continue on that tree. Let's see. Dee Dee at 1429, I'd just like to say we can plant the tree in front of your house. I think your house does not have a tree. If and when we replace these trees, we'd be more than happy to plant the tree in front of your house as well. I think you had one thing mistaken though, that the property owner is technically responsible for tree maintenance. The city does some maintenance. It's more safety related. If there are clearances over the street, over the sidewalk, if there's a broken limb, that sort of thing. But technically the property owner should be maintaining trees. Ingrid mentioned systematic culling. And again, it's not really systematic. It's just as these trees show that there just happens to be a lot of these liquid ambers on this street. And this street, Portland, there's a few blocks where there's a lot of these trees. And as they show problems, as they drop limbs, they show that they're starting to fall apart. That's when we address them. We're not just going through and one by one looking at each liquid amber to remove. Red maple's a great tree. I don't know if it's going to take 100 years to become this large, but another tree we could plant in this location, I think we could plant live oaks, which is the highest environmental value tree. 20 years, you'll have a beautiful crown. I have one in front of my house. I planted from an acorn 20 years ago. It's huge. It's just a beautiful tree. That's a possibility that we can do. And that's a native tree, a California native. The cars that were damaged, I pulled 4 claims against the city for cars that were damaged. I found only 4. I'm sure there's more, but I found 4. All 4 of them were liquid amber limbs that came down on trees. No on cars. No other trees have done this. So, and the disease portion, that wasn't a major factor on the trees. That's why that box wasn't clicked on the postings. The real factor was the limb drop and the decay and the included bark on these trees, more the mechanical thing than a biological thing. But that was a minor factor that I just wanted to point out, because when the tree is stressed or when it's attacked by something or this kind of a fungus or bacteria takes hold, it stresses the tree more, and the tree reacts by dropping more limbs. And that's really the big issue, is the limb drop here. So I think I've covered what I wanted to. I think I'm just reiterating things I've already brought up, though. So.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Comments from Commissioner? Okay. Well, I guess, I wanted to, I already started talking. I'll come back to you. Commissioner Kent, but what I wanted to talk about this word systematic, because it's like there's some truth to both sides of this. It actually is a systematic removal, but it's not a system that's targeting the removal of those trees. We do have various systems that are at play to repair the sidewalk, to deal with these street trees. And I think one unfortunate consequence of the way that it's being done is this project, not just street trees, but every project in the city is kind of moving through the city. And so all the impact happens in one place. And it does seem like this one stretch of Washington, all the trees, we have reason to remove all the trees, but it's sort of coming down to we're removing all the trees in this one street. And the owners are going, wait a minute, you know? So if there's a way we could somehow spread out this work over time that didn't impact one place so much, you know, I guess another thing is it would be great if there were a way we could consider replacing the trees faster. You know, bringing in trucking in full-grown trees. Maybe that would be a possibility. I guess the last thing about the comment about the Midwest, I guess, you know, what I would say is when you compare Albany to other places, we do have to understand it's a unique place. Albany, last I heard, was the 35th most dense city in the United States. There's 20,000 people in 1 square mile. So if a tree branch falls in Albany, the odds of it falling on someone's head are a lot higher than, well, most places. You know, except maybe it will be New York City, maybe, but there aren't a lot of trees. Now, that's, yeah, just, I think a lot of this really is confusing on the part of the public, to the public, and that we do need to make some effort to make things clear. I guess I recall now seeing this checkbox issue come up a few times. The people are complaining, you know, that, well, why wasn't this checked? And my recommendation, John, you can use it or not, it's okay, it's not my fault. But I have the same issue with my job. I have forms that I have to fill out. This is always, it's a pain in the ass, but there's these little check boxes. And if you don't check one of them, people, so my recommendation is, if it's a factor at all, check the box. But if it's present, check the box. If you're not going to talk about it, then don't check the box, because then someone's going to say, you know, hey, he checked this, but there's no description. So if those two things don't match, I think we're going to run into issues. So that's what I had to say. On to you, Mr. Kent.
Yeah, thanks. That's what you said was interesting. And kind of play off that a little bit. I think one of the reasons this is what we're seeing on this commission, which you're probably seeing as resident too, is an issue comes up, a tree is unhealthy, it's usually a mature tree or large, but not always, and we take it out and then we put a tree in there. And then there's another tree taken out, another large tree taken out, and we don't know where we're going. And when you said there's no policy, John, you're right, there is no policy. And that's the problem. We don't have a plan. And it'd be one thing if we knew we were taking out these problematic trees, it would systematically, and replacing them with bigger, large trees. I think your idea of a Quercus lobata there is fantastic. And we knew that was the vision. And we could we could get on board easily and then say, okay, we're not doing this kind of haphazardly, but there's a sense of kind of a haphazardness to it. I think that's what a lot of the public's responding to. Whereas you happen to look at this tree, and I'm not denying that it's unhealthy, and I think everything you said is correct. And I know liquid amers are problematic. I think I'm aware of that. But it does seem a little bit like we're going to take this tree out because I looked at that one, and then this one, a branch broke over here, let's take out that tree. And you're responding correctly, that's your job. I'm not doubting any of that. But as from the public's perspective, it really looks like we're just moving around, taking out trees and putting in other trees that might fit better. There's no plan to it. I don't know how we get to a plan. I think that's kind of a bigger goal, but I think that's what's missing and what makes these decisions so difficult. And so with that, I'm going to pass out. Might not be done talking, but just want to put that out there for now. And I have my thoughts on how I'm going to vote when that time comes. Are we voting now, or what's?
Did you want to respond to that, Mark? Right, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think the point about having a master plan around the urban forestry is a very good point, and that is in process. And in fact, we did recently receive proposals for at least the first piece of it to do a inventory of the trees within the city. So I think we recognize that is an issue, and I understand why the public doesn't see there has a concern about not understanding the larger picture, but that is in process. I don't have a schedule. We're going to first do a inventory of all the trees and get it in GIS, and then that'll allow us to do the master plan piece of it.
Was that all, Commissioner Kent? Or?
Yes.
Okay, and I just wanted to follow on that comment, dovetail off that comment a little bit. It was very helpful in helping me understand that. I think the part that complicates this, and maybe is hard for people to understand, is the role of the homeowner. That the homeowner is the one who's responsible for the tree, and the homeowner is the one who's liable for the tree. So each decision the homeowner has to be involved and have a chance to provide their input because they're the ones. So that's the caveat against having this master plan that we decide on. But wait a minute, you can't mandate to the homeowner that you're going to plant the tree then or make them take care of it. They have to accept that responsibility. So that was my comment. On to you, Commissioner Abbott.
All right, thank you. First off, John, I wanted to ask what you thought of this idea of a pause on these trees. What did you think of letting them sit for 6 months or something and letting the residents kind of do some more looking? Does that make any sense to you at all? Or you think that I know you can't say. You say it could fall right now, but what do you think the odds are?
I don't think I can really comment on allowing citizens to evaluate public property. We can do it. I do it. I do my basic evaluation. I don't know. I think there's risk. You know, there's risk. You can't there's no arborist out there that's going to look at a tree and say, okay, this tree will drop a limb in October and this tree's going to fall completely next January. It doesn't really work like that. So again, once these things are brought to my attention, I need to respond. I need to, and I consider public safety, number one. I consider liability for the city. I consider liability and peace of mind for the property owner and for myself. I have to go to sleep at night. I'm the person who goes around town looking at it, knows these trees are out there, and it's worrisome. But so that's a hard thing to answer. I mean, if somebody wants to do that, sure, they can do that. They could present it at a meeting, I suppose. That would be great. But then again, you get 10 arborists out there, you're going to have 10 sort of different opinions about this. There's no exact science to the tree, but I would bet that, and I'm not a betting person, that if you had 10 arborists, the majority, 7, 8, 9 of them would say, yeah, these trees, they're frightening. They should probably come out.
Okay, thank you. I also wanted to thank you for the extra steps you did on the notice. I was very impressed that I noticed you had notices on the other side of the street than you had on Tuesday. But I want to make one more suggestion. I think you're doing great. I think you're doing better, but you still got to notice that paper, then walk up and read it. I want to see a piece of paper like on 3 sides that says proposed for removal. Just big letters. It's all it says, and then you have the notice there as well. People need to be able to just walk by and glance and see it, rather than having to notice, oh, look at that, and to read the document to figure out what's being done.
Yeah, there's a lot.
That's all I'm going to say.
I guess a good question on that suggestion, though, is that actually legal for him to do that? Or doesn't the notice have to be certain, is there certain requirements?
I've been using what I've been given when I came here. This is the standard notice, but I've edited it a little bit. I've added and changed some information. So it's actually, I added more information here because I want to if somebody's interested, I figure they're going to read it and understand.
And I'm saying in addition to, you have that, but then you have.
It could say tree removal in large letters. And,
exactly. And then they can come read the notice. That's my idea.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to Commissioner Martin.
Thank you. I wanted to thank John for his response to the people who called in, and also there was a rather lengthy email that is in the public record that he responded to someone. And one part that stood out to me that I think is important to keep in mind is that he says, in an urban setting, trees need to be managed and often cycled out, meaning that we cannot accept the risk of allowing some trees to grow and live out their full lives as they would in a forest setting. And I do feel for the residents who live in the area who, and the little girl talking about how she enjoys the swing and everyone enjoys the shade. But I was called over to listen to some residents talk about the trees a few days ago, and they were throwing out some ideas, and it was also clear that there were some residents that fully accepted that the trees weren't really appropriate for that area. One mentioned that before the sidewalk was repaired, their kid had fallen and needed over a dozen stitches or something to because they were injured on the sidewalk before it was repaired, and that now that we've seen limbs falling and things like that, that the decisions were made, as we've heard, maybe 50 years ago to plant these trees, and they're all coming to the similar level of maturity in the similar neighborhood, whereas people decided 50 years ago to plant them, and we're having to do the best we can with what we've got. And I do hope people do appreciate that we are looking at them individually and discussing them individually. Some people did ask if we could wait to make any decisions on these trees or maybe liquid ambers in general. I don't know, until the full tree master plan is finished. Can staff comment on how long that process might take?
That's not coming soon, as far as I understand. This is going to be a long process, and
I imagine going through a public process around this is not going to be a short. Do we have
actual months or years or something rather than?
I imagine it's on the order of a year before it gets fully adopted.
Yeah, so basically you'd be asking us to leave this dangerous tree for a year while we talk about it. But okay.
Okay.
Anyway, Commissioner Price. Hello?
You're on mute.
Thanks. Thanks, John, for the excellent presentation of information. I guess I'm really wrestling with this one and understanding both sides of the issue. And I guess I just want to kind of go back to Commissioner Kent's thought earlier about whether there's an opportunity to pace this out, and find kind of test interim solutions, remove one tree, test interim solutions on the less at-risk tree, and rather than a full removal. And since, if there is an option there, I'm kind of just probing that question. I mean, if we think about like how valuable older trees are from a climate, carbon sequestration, shade provision standpoint, and how long it does take trees to grow in.
This makes me think of a liquid amber. I can't remember the address a few years back that I brought to commission, and it was denied. The removal was denied. And a few months later, it actually dropped a limb on a car, and the property owners filed a claim against the city. these are the things I worry about with the liquid embers. We walk away from it, like I said, tonight, this tree could be dropping limbs left or right, and hopefully, probably not, hopefully not, but it's possible. So again, once these are kind of brought to my attention, I can't walk away from it and say, we'll just wait until another big limb drops and act on it then. So this is the reason I bring these to the council. Well, the owners apply to have it removed, but there were others where there is a liquid ember recently where a property owner talked to me about having it removed. It dropped a branch that was about this big, and it keeps dropping branches. I said, well, that's not really that much of a hazard for the public. So they're hiring a contractor to prune the tree, even though I recommended that it didn't really need any pruning because it's been pruned so much in the past already. But this particular tree didn't really show these kind of problems, even though it's a liquid amber. So it's not every liquid amber that I'm shooting for. And there's other trees too that, I get complaints about honeydew dropping on the ground and the black stuff on the sidewalk and all this, and they want the tree cut out. And I explain that that's not really a reason. It's not really a safety a hazard to the community. So, I don't know, pacing these out, it's just leaving that risk open. I think, and once we're made aware of something, again, there's liability. Well, we're aware of it. We're aware that there's a potential problem here.
Okay, were there any other comments from commissioners? What I did want to do, because we're going to vote on the trees separately, so if you could just bring up the first tree, it was 1431 and 14. So can we have, or maybe the first one, let's do the one the homeowner called you about first. Are they okay? Both. All right. Well, let's start with the first tree. The first tree that you went out to look at. Was that 1431 or 1433?
1431 is this.
Okay, so let's look at it so everyone knows. So maybe just for our review, just kind of go around the tree and see. Okay, so this is the one that has the split trunk. Okay, so let's
drop the limb.
Yeah. Okay, so this dropped the limb. You notice it, and I want to do this one first because I think there's more reservation about the other one. So. Okay, so let's keep the focus on 1431 and let's, I guess, have a roll call vote. Unless, I'll just give an opportunity. Do the commissioners know which tree we're talking about? Okay, so then let's have a roll call vote, 1431.
Is that a motion? Do we need a second on the motion?
Oh, you're right. Sorry. Yes, thank you. I got so lost in this. We have a motion to approve or deny?
I'll make a motion to approve the application for removal of that, the first tree.
1431. Is there a second? Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, the first Commissioner Kent seconds. Okay, then now we'll have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Kent?
Yes.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Price?
Yes.
Chair Beal?
Yes. And the motion carries unanimously. That's surprising. Okay, I should say that after all that discussion. Okay, so let's go on to 1433. And this one could potentially have more objections because it was kind of the innocent bystander in this operation. Not so innocent bystander. So, okay, everyone, and this is the one, John, I guess maybe you just review. This is the one that's where there's two trees and they're kind of fused together here.
Well, no, it's one tree with multiple trunks growing together.
Oh, but it's splitting like this. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then we have a motion.
Has this decay in it here. That's really the larger defect, larger concern.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move that we approve this application.
Thank you, Commissioner Abbott. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Martin. Can we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Kent?
I'll say no, but I want to qualify with not right now.
It's either yes or no. So
no, it's not yes or no. You can give comment.
It's either yes or no vote.
No, you can give comment on your. You can give comment on your votes.
Okay, you say so, but we're counting yeses and no. So the next roll call vote.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Price?
No.
Chair Beal?
Yes. The motion carries. Okay. So then let's go on to Pierce Street.
Okay. Pierce Street, we have 4 liquid hampers up for removal.
John, before you go on with your presentation, I think we're going to bring in some representatives from PG&E since these removals are tied to.
Oh, wow.
Project.
Okay. Yeah. And next time, please tell me about that beginning. I would have done this one first if I knew you had someone waiting.
I was just going to show pictures and not. It's more about the project than the trees here. So.
Oh.
But anyway, this is the row of trees is 4 liquid amber here, or I don't know if you can see them. It's hard to get all 4 together, but they're in front of 545 Pierce Street. 4 liquid amber. PG&E has a project where they need to take up the sidewalk and excavate the soil along this strip of sidewalk. The trees are, I'll just go briefly, the trees are a little bit stunted here. The soil is apparently really poor. It's mostly stone. It's mostly rock here. I have pictures of these trees over time. Over the past 14 years, they look about the same. They haven't really grown. So although the one tree, it has some dieback on it. This is 2008. This is 2011. This is 2021. Basically the same. These trees really haven't done much. The first tree has some dieback. Half of the crown is dead. The last tree on the north side has done some sidewalk damage, and it's about 3 feet from a fire hydrant, which should have never been put there in the first place. But we can let PG&E explain the project a little bit if they're ready.
Yeah, so we have 2 representatives, Kara Bateman and Claudia Luna. And maybe, Kara, could you go through the project and just explain what we're doing and why we're doing it, and sort of the extent of what's going to happen here?
Yeah, sure. No problem, Mark. So my name's Kara Bateman. I am with PG&E's environmental management team. And Claudia and I are here tonight to give you a little bit of insight on the project that's going on here. So back in early May, there was an underground transformer that services 555 Pierce Street that failed and had to be replaced. And as part of the investigation of that failure, we discovered that there was some dielectric fluid that had leaked out of the transformer and into its precast concrete vault. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with the area, right? These apartment buildings kind of sit up a little higher than Pierce Street. So this transformer sat up at a much higher elevation than everywhere else. So the insulating fluid, AKA dielectric fluid, mixed with water from landscape irrigation sprinklers that surrounded this vault, made its way down through PVC duct into another vault that's at the base of the driveway for 555. And then it basically continued north on Pierce Street, sort of following that gentle slope down towards Cerrito Creek. So all of PG&E's PVC duct and concrete vaults that are in the sidewalk or beneath the sidewalk on the east side of Pierce Street need to be removed. So it's not just about removing the soil, it's actually removing all of these concrete vaults and ducts as well. If anybody's driven through here lately, you've noticed that there's been a lot of activity because we've actually been installing brand new electric facilities on the west side of Pierce Street in order to provide service to all the customers that live in 535, 545, and 555, and then minimize interruption of service once we can connect them to the new electric facilities, and then circle back and start removing all of the old. And you might have noticed in some of the pictures that John flashed that the, the 811 USA markings, that those red lines are where our conduit is. And in some cases, it goes right through where the trees are. And, generally speaking, you want to stay, don't do anything too disturbing within the drip line of the tree. And, we're going right through the middle of where these trees are. There's really no way that they could be worked around because we are required to remove all of the conduit. And there's one case where one of our vaults is actually right up against one of these trees as well. It's a pretty large vault as well. And just the sort of intrusive nature of that removal plus the conduit connected to it, again, would really, really compromise the integrity of these trees if we could even keep them, honestly, standing upright during the work anyway. That's how intrusive it will be in most cases.
Just tagging onto this, so they're taking up all the sidewalk. And so what this does is give us an opportunity to replace these tree wells and actually make some changes. Right now, this doesn't have the width to meet ADA. So we would do it, we would actually extend the sidewalk a little bit to meet ADA requirements. And then we would actually probably enlarge the tree well in the north-south direction to give it a little space. And then talk with John about finding a more appropriate species for this location, and with PG&E digging out all the soil around the conduits as well, we could bring back some, better horticultural soil to help the trees in the long run. So that's sort of the restoration piece of this.
Okay. Was that the presentation, or are we?
That's essentially that is the presentation. Yes.
Okay. I guess Commissioner Martin got his hand up there with the question.
Thanks. Yeah, I have a few questions. One for PG&E, or some for PG&E. One is what kind of chemicals is the concern? Is it the concern of chemical contamination, or is it concern of some electrical shorts happening now that there's some electrolytes flowing through the system? Another question is why can't you just clean out the lines and the vaults? You said the PG&E is required to remove the PVC or the conduit. And also, has the soil been tested for contamination? Has there been contamination of groundwater?
Okay, so that was quite a few questions there. So if you could bear with me, I might need you to repeat a few of those. So first of all, there is no groundwater in this area. We have advanced, there's a creek, but that doesn't mean that there's groundwater. So the geological feature that is basically Albany Hill is actually still quite shallow in this area. We advanced 52 soil borings along the east side of Pierce Street from the bridge all the way to the driveway of 555. All 52 were completely dry. All 52 were advanced to refusal at bedrock. The utility work that was done on the west side of Pierce Street basically consisted of about 1,000 linear feet of open trench, also completely dry, also advanced to bedrock. So groundwater is confirmed as a non-issue. And the 52 borings that we advanced, we collected 94 soil borings. All 94 soil borings were non-detect for constituents that are typically associated with electrical equipment. in addition to a whole host of other parameters that we sampled for soil disposal purposes, including CAM17 metals, hydrocarbon, motor oil, diesel range, gas range, et cetera, BTEX, and whatnot. And some of these, there's a few problems here. So one of which is that all of this equipment has energized equipment in it, right? You can't properly get in there and do a decontamination that meets US EPA requirements when we've got energized equipment in it. And that's mostly just talking about these concrete vaults, right? When we have like an isolated incident, let's say just like a single vault, nothing migrates anywhere, and that transformer gets removed, right? Because we have to replace it. You've got the ability to really get in there and do a proper decontamination that meets the applicable requirements. But in this particular case where we've got 6 vaults, all have energized equipment, and then even more sort of problematic is the 4-inch PVC conduit. Some of these runs of conduit are 70, 80, 90, 100, 200 feet long. There is no way, and trust me, we've tried to properly decontaminate the conduit, especially when it has energized poly-coated conductor in it. And that poly coating is somewhat of like a porous surface. So that has absorbed some of the dielectric fluid. And that dielectric fluid is primarily mineral oil. And mineral oil is a hydrocarbon, right? Plastics, we all know, generally made of hydrocarbons. So the dielectric fluid starts to dissolve the coating on the conductor. So not only do we have a continuing source of dielectric fluid within the conduit system because the sheath of the conductor is sort of absorbed it, but it's also degrading the coating of the conductor. It eventually could cause some sort of failure at that point. But the primary driver for it is just the inability to properly decontaminate these substructures to meet US EPA requirements that are in play.
Okay. And you know what some of the, besides mineral oil, are there other hazardous chemicals that have been, that are a concern, and have they been detected in the soils?
So just to be clear, as I noted previously, of the 52 soil borings that we advanced with 94 soil samples, all of those soil samples had non-detectable concentrations of any of the constituents associated with electrical equipment. So there's been no contamination identified outside of our substructure system. Now, as far as the components of the dielectric fluid that leaked from the original equipment, there was a percentage that also contained polychlorinated biphenyls that was mixed in with that mineral oil.
Okay, thank you.
Wow. Any other commissioner questions? Okay. All right. Let's see what's happening with the comment situation. Let's see how many we have. Okay, just one. So, yeah. Oh, wait. Commissioner Kent, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead.
Sorry, it was late breaking comment.
Yeah, I took so long to figure out who was the dead.
I got it in before the public. Just this is a question more about the trees again. So, John, if these trees are removed and new trees are placed in, do you just choose the species on this, or is there consultation with the 555 Gateway? Because I thought before it was alluded that a master plan had to be debated with the residents. So what's the process for selecting trees?
Typically, I discuss it with the property owner. In this case, there's 320 property owners or something along. It's condos, so every condo is a property owner. I don't know that. I think in the past the city made the decisions here across the street. The city made the decisions for the tree species. So.
I'm just wondering, because in this case there is no overhead wires, but yeah, you don't want to block views. So isn't
that, and let me try to help out here. Isn't that really a separate process of determining when to? Doesn't that come later? Like we cut down the tree, and then we don't necessarily decide what tree is going to replace it now. Is that accurate or not?
Well, we're never asked for trees to be planted.
No, but I'm saying, like, we're cutting down the trees. Is it already decided? I mean, my impression was the tree was removed, and then the process of what trees could replace it kind of comes later. Is that?
Not always, not always, but sometimes when it comes time to plant, the decision's made or changed at that point. But generally, when a tree's, private, on a residence, a single residence, a tree is removed, I let the property owner know that we need to replace a tree. I give them the information, the tree list, application, all that. I let them choose a species, an alternate species, and then if I think they're no good, I discuss it further with them. But it's a little bit of a process.
Okay.
Can I jump in real quickly? I think this has been a fast-moving project. This just started literally just several weeks ago, and I think it would be appropriate. Maybe we select a tree. We can engage the management company there, see if there's any issues, and then we can kind of work it out so that there's a tree selection that fits the area that everyone would be happy with.
Yeah, it almost seems like it would go to a vote of the condo association or something, because there's so many people might have different stuff. But also, I didn't mean to cut you off, Commissioner Kent. Did you? I just wanted to try to inject on that.
Well, I know this is question time, and I don't want to bog question with comment, but it just seems.
Planting
cities for the trees for the city, or are we planting trees for the adjacent resident? It's just a kind of I'll leave that there. Well.
That's always a question. So, but who makes the decisions here? That's a good question. I mean, I sent notices to every condo in the area there in the complex, and I don't know that we have any present at the meeting, or I'm not sure there's much concern about what the species would be. I have some ideas, but I'm open, to talking to condo association or whoever.
Director Hurley, you had a comment? No.
That might have been an old
hand. Yeah, but I guess, okay. So Commissioner Martin.
Yeah, two questions. One is for PG&E. Will the new vaults, to avoid this kind of problem in the future and possible more removal of trees, will the new vaults have some sort of like leak detection like water heaters have that can send an alert out when there's some conductivity detected or something?
No. That is not something that we have in our underground substructures. Okay. But you have to recognize too that they're not liquid. Liquids can sort of enter from the top of any kind. In urban areas, right? Unfortunately, we have people who pour cooking grease into our vaults. We've got vehicle repair facilities that pour their motor oil from their repairs into our vaults. 555, their sprinklers were introducing water through the tops of our vaults. So it's unfortunately not as easy. I mean, I wish it was that simple, but in this particular case, unfortunately, it's just not feasible.
Okay, thanks.
Just adding one more point to that.
Hang on, please. Administrative question. Do we have to vote to continue? Because we're getting close to 10. Do we have to vote to continue? Isabel? When do we have to do that?
By 10 o'clock. So you still have 12 minutes.
Okay. So this one was, no, I thought we had to do it ahead of time. Sorry. So where were we?
Just one quick question, one quick add-on to the comment. The substructure, the new alignment has been moved to the west side of the road in the multi-use path, and actually PG&E had worked with us pretty closely and effectively to make sure the conduit runs as well as the vaults weren't near trees. So I think going forward, this particular run, I don't foresee this problem happening again.
Okay. And then one last question is, for John or for whoever is, just wanted to make sure this, the meeting tonight has been a fair amount about liquid amber trees, and here there's a bunch of liquid amber trees in the sites of the city to remove. But these trees, is it true that any trees that would be planted in these locations would be up for removal for this project?
Yeah, this has nothing to do with the species of the tree. It has to do with everything around the tree is going to be dug up. So anything planted here would have the same result.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to suggest we're not going to be able to make it through this site down. So should I have a motion to extend the meeting?
I'll move that we extend the meeting if necessary.
Oh, to what time?
10:15.
10:15. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang Frank?
Yes.
Commissioner Kent?
Yes.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Price?
Yes. Yes.
Beal?
Yes, we can continue the meeting. Okay, so then is there more commissioner comment? I mean, commissioner questions, actually. Okay, we're gonna have a comment later. So then I see, and now what was the total number of trees are being removed here?
4.
4. Okay, and so, yeah, all right, well, I only see one commenter, and I gave 4 minutes for the others. So, Sarah, you can have 4 minutes. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, so my name is Sari Gomberg, and I am on the board of 545 Pierce Street, also called Bridgewater. And I'm glad I stuck it out. Full disclosure, I'm also a PG&E employee. So it's interesting on multiple levels. And I actually been here for about a year, so I'm a newbie at this, and I reached out to the other board members and they didn't seem concerned, and so we didn't actually meet and discuss any issues. It would be helpful in the future actually to get some of this information in advance so we could discuss it as a board and make sure that we know what the issues are, but I don't see any issues with removing these trees, and I don't see that we really have any choice. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and please do connect with us because it's important that we be involved and know what's going on.
Thank you for your comment, Sari. Judith Carrillo. Hi.
Hi, yes, do you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Hi, Judith.
Hi, I am a homeowner at Bridgewater, and I've lived there for 8 years. I'm former president. I was president for 7.
Judith?
Yes?
Judith? Oh, sorry. Never mind. Go ahead. I hear you now.
Okay, I'm a former president for 7 years. I've just relinquished the position. I want to say that these trees have come up in discussion a number of times by homeowners in that the ADA lack of required space for a wheelchair or scooter or even a person with a walker is not complied here. And I don't think you're going to have any trouble with that, getting the trees removed. And I'm not sure you would have to have full membership, just the board members' approval, or not even that, due to the issues with PG&E, who's done an excellent job. I can't believe how organized they all have been with this whole process, and their street traffic controllers have done a really excellent job. So I think I'm very concerned about the fact that there isn't a good pathway for ADA wheelchairs accessible. When they go down Pierce Street, they then have to cross that busy street in order to get to the other side and then back again in order to get down to Buchanan. So that's my comment, that I think the trees should be removed. I'm not sure about putting new trees in there if it can be done and still have accessible sidewalk.
Okay, I think, is that everybody? Yeah, that was all the, Commissioner comments. Commissioner Martin.
Yeah, I think it would be good to have Mark reiterate what the plan is for having ADA compliant sidewalks when this is all done.
Yeah, so again, this is a fast moving project and it hasn't been completely worked out, but we have talked about, in a nutshell, this is about a 6-foot sidewalk and it's half of it's a tree well, and then that leaves you 3 feet, and it's actually probably a little less than 3 feet for the pathway. What we would do is put a 4-foot minimum pathway, and then the balance would be a tree well. We would probably lengthen it in the north and south direction to give it a little more space, and then find a tree that we think would do well here and maintain the sidewalk. So this does give us an opportunity to correct that the ADA issue here.
Okay, thanks.
Any other commissioners? Yeah. You're on mute. Commissioner Kent?
Yeah, I got it now. Thanks for that description, Mark. It seems to me that I just want to weigh in on the tree species because I think trees are important here because it's a major walking area and it's a little bit bleak. It does provide some shade. And I think a tall tree probably wouldn't be appropriate because of the blocking the views of the residents, and plus the tree wall space is not very large. So small trees here would be quite nice for the people walking. Unfortunately, there's no overhead wires, so it's too bad this is not a spot we want to put a large tree in, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. So and possibly maybe more trees than just 5. If we're putting small trees in, could we put, 6 or 7?
We can explore that. Again, this is fast moving. We wanted to, PG&E schedule, actually, I think we'll be taking out these sidewalks and pretty shortly here. But I think we can look at the layout and try to come up with something that works, and it might include additional trees.
Yeah, sure. Later.
I'm prepared to make a motion if you're prepared to receive it.
Okay, yeah. My comment was, boy, I hear you about this ADA, and I wish Solano Avenue was more clear. I don't think there's 2 feet most places in Solano. But yeah, let's go ahead, Mr. Abbott.
I can assure you that there's 4 feet at least the 40 inches in every inch of Solano. I can tell you that for sure. But yeah, I'm going to move that we approve this application to remove these trees. I look forward to seeing a revised sidewalk and new trees there.
Second.
Second? Anyone?
A second.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang Frank?
Yes.
Commissioner Kent?
Yes.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Price?
Yes.
Chair Beal?
Yeah. And the motion carries. Unbelievably, we still have a few more issues to discuss. Did anyone have any subcommittee reports? Is there any of the 2 subcommittees have anything?
Nothing yet for the flex court.
Community engagement. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, trying to get unmuted. I can give a really quick update.
Sure.
keep this minimal. Okay, so just to share a little bit where we are. So as a reminder, we're researching to develop processes for the city to engage with community groups that provide care, programming, and upkeep of Albany parks and open spaces. So we're basically at the start of a needs assessment process and research. We've begun reaching out to community groups that work within the Albany parks and open spaces to understand like their aspirations and ideas. We're going to be meeting with Isabel and maybe some of the city staff to discuss the same and understand past history and future plans. And then we'll be also looking at some case studies for coming out of other similar cities. And with the plan to kind of formulate some recommendations, hopefully by the end of the year. That's where we
are. Okay. Let me just check to make sure there's no public comment. Or do the commissioners have any questions for Commissioner Price? Okay. I don't know. I'm having trouble. I can't see the attendees. There's no comment, is there? Okay. For some reason, my Zoom's acting cranky. Okay. That's it for that. The future agenda items. Is there any items that commissioners think we should talk about on the future agenda? Okay. Well, then the next meeting is Thursday, October 13th. And I thank you all for. Oh wait, I'm trying to miss.
Sorry, Brian, my mute was on. I couldn't.
You got a future item you want to talk about. You want to talk about the future, right?
Future agenda items.
Yeah.
I want to discuss the tree master plan.
The tree master plan. Okay.
Not the tree inventory, which you're doing now, but the master plan.
I want to ask. So I guess I would direct this to the staff. Then, at what point do we discuss the tree master plan? Or is there another process going on about this?
Well,
or is it solely within Parks and Rec?
Yeah, no, the tree master plan is spearheaded, I think, by the community development department. You received a presentation by one of the interns working on the project. I can certainly see if there's an update.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea because I mean it seems like we have to have some sort of discussion about the process because it's just we're spending a lot of time in these tree removal meetings about the process and it really doesn't give it justice to talk about it. So I think that would be a great idea if we could have some sort of presentation discussion.
And Isabel, you're talking about the master plan, not the inventory, right?
Right. I think the inventory will be part of the master plan. It's one one component of the master plan.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Then with that, thanks everyone for your participation and service to the community. And we'll see you on October 13th.